Holla.
Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 22nd of September, 2024. I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today, Zachary Burgess.
Mostly not ill.
And Robert Kemp.
Oh, that means you can still come and have pizza.
There's not that not ill.
But there's all this pizza here now.
As if that's a problem for you.
Well,
Is that why we're in 3 different places today instead of 2? Because you're mostly not ill?
Yeah. It was real bad on, like, Thursday, basically. Thursday, I basically slept the entire day. And then Friday, I slept most of the day. And I'm still not entirely... I mean, now it's just background, where it's just like I occasionally just get sweats and chills or whatever. But
oh, man.
That, okay. So it's a bit fluey.
Probably.
Is it the Rona?
I wouldn't have thought so. It didn't feel like that at all.
Well, I don't know. The Rona,
like it.
The Rona has, like, I don't know.
Well,
I've had it twice. And the first time was way worse than the second, but both were kind of fluey for me.
Well, it didn't feel like the first time I had it, I guess. And I don't think I've had it since.
Mm.
In fact, the first time I had it, I barely even noticed. I had it that way.
What's going on with the tests for coronavirus? Do they even work? Sorry, COVID, whatever. Like, because the strains are like different now. Do the lateral flow tests? And I'm pretty sure the lateral flow tests I had in the pandemic have all gone off or whatever and need replacing. Sure. But you need to buy them now. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I think they. Well, I say I had it twice. I'm not sure about the second time, but it was bad flu. So I assumed it was. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you catch one of the lesser strains, whether it's sort of just classified as flu at this point. But
yeah, it definitely didn't feel like the one time I had COVID. This was actually way worse. It was just like I was so fucking tired. Like when I wasn't sleeping, the rare times when I was up at all, it was just like being vertical was exhausting, and I was just like, fuck this. Just slept some more.
When I had COVID originally, that was the main symptom, and I know I had it because it was in the pandemic. I actually had the PCR test, right? The lab test, and it was like, "Yep, you've got it. Don't go anywhere near anyone." But yeah, I was just exhausted, like could barely stand up, kind of. But otherwise, wasn't even coughing.
I guess potentially I could have had a much worse reaction to one of the new strains. Maybe
could be.
Maybe I had the inverted reaction where the newer strains you're meant to be more resistant to because you've already had vaccines or whatever.
Yeah.
The older strains.
But where did it come from in your life?
Well, yeah, that's the actual question. The only place I could have got it is Rob's, and
right,
that wouldn't really make sense.
Well, not necessarily. Maybe it bounced off Rob and Naomi and Miles.
Well, someone there would have had it to transmit to me, right? They could have just passively.
Well, I don't know. Yeah,
they could. They totally could.
Unless we all just carried it for some reason.
That's totally a thing, right? It definitely was during.
They theorized, that they were carriers.
Anyway, feeling mostly not ill. That's good.
Yeah, mostly.
That has it impacted your Satisfactory play? That's what we want to know.
Well, since Thursday, yes, it has.
Yes, it has. Oh no, bad timing. You want to get ill before big exciting games come out.
Well, I mean, could talk about it later, obviously, but I got about as far as Satisfactory as I've ever got. So
okay,
I guess I still managed to put in quite a bit of time.
Okay,
and it was before Factorio comes out, obviously. Get the illness in before that one.
Oh, I see. Okay, are we just building up to Factorio then? Okay, fine. I'm looking forward to your review.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be... Factorio 1's already happened, right? It's Factorio expansion time?
Yeah, it's an expansion, technically.
I noticed, is it weird, right? When... this is a podcast about video games. When games go off Game Pass, but they're just not yet out of preview or game preview, there's a bit of me that goes, that's a bit weird. Like Slime Rancher 2, for instance, that hasn't actually come out of... They call it game preview on Xbox rather than early access, but that's essentially what it is.
Right.
But it's available through game preview on Game Pass. And Slime Rancher 2 recently left the service, even though it hasn't come out of game preview yet. And it's it's a bit weird. I don't know if I'm into that.
I mean, it'll be more weird if it doesn't come back to Game Pass when it releases.
When it releases, yeah.
Like if it only ever exists on Game Pass as a preview.
Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah, because I quite liked Slime Rancher 1, and then I was holding off on 2 for exactly that reason. I was like, I don't really want to play it right now. I've got other stuff to play, so I'll wait for it to come out of preview. Oh no, it's gone.
Well, I mean, it didn't come out though, so
yeah, it didn't come out. Good. It's fine.
It will probably come back, presumably.
Let's hope. Yeah, it's not like things haven't come back on Game Pass after they've disappeared before. Like, it's stuff that's out, not like... I don't really know about preview stuff. I'm not sure I've really been paying all that much attention, but...
Maybe it just hasn't been long enough for that to happen yet, really.
Yeah. Perhaps. I don't know if... what was the other one? The one I did play that was in preview was that Turbo Golf Racing, right? When that came out. I don't know that that's come out of preview either, even though they're like a couple of seasons in or something, or what they call seasons now.
I think Valheim is about to go off preview as well.
Oh yes,
that's still not actually out.
Yeah, that's about to leave Game Pass. Yes, correct. That feels like one of those games that's never going to come out. But then Factorio did eventually, so anything can happen.
Well, Satisfactory was only in early access for 5 years.
Only 5 years.
Jeez.
Not like 7 Days to Die, where it's technically out now, and that only took like 14 years or whatever it was.
What?
Like, how playable was Satisfactory when it first was available?
It was totally fine. It was like...
Yeah, it was like a game.
I mean, it didn't have all the content, obviously.
Yeah.
So it was like, this is actual real early access in like we're actually still making the game kind of way, and they did do a lot of like adjustments based on community feedback. They actually did a good job of it.
We have an early video on the site.
Yeah, and hopefully if I get around to editing, we will have some 1.0 videos on the site eventually.
Oh, sweet.
Woo. Check out the belts.
Yep.
Whoa, look at the belt on that.
Check out those belts. I kind of want to. What would I want to see in a Satisfactory video? I would want it to jump so that I could actually see how it might progress from the start to the insanity. Like,
well, that is kind of what I've done. I haven't recorded everything.
You need to do one of those like level videos where it's like, here's a level 1 factory, here's a level 2 factory, here's a pro factory.
Well, that is kind of how it went. I recorded like I think 3 videos. And they're spaced out approximately at like each time I progress the space elevator, which is like split into, I guess, 5 parts over the whole length of the game. So I did the start of the game, and then after I did the first and second space elevator packages. There is a fairly big time jump between them all, but it's not. They're also not like short videos either. It's still like me playing the game for 2 hours, also.
Right. I'm sure there's plenty to see.
Depending on how much I edit that out.
Yeah, you could probably do some hard cuts in places to be like, okay, so I did all that. Here's what it now looks like.
Are you guys getting quite pro Rob at this point with DaVinci Resolve? Is that the go-to?
Well, that's my go-to, but I wouldn't call myself pro, not by any stretch. Like, I do very, very minimal edits where I can help it.
And it will be my first time attempting to use that for these videos.
Oh, it will be.
On my new PC, obviously, I haven't done any editing yet. So I'm just like, now's my opportunity to sync up with Rob's stuff.
Yeah, the extent of my skill is usually like doing some stupid end credit animation. But
but that's the fun part. But I have no feel for how that compares with, Premiere or
and to be honest, I've kind of forgotten these. Like there are parts of the flow in DaVinci Resolve that don't make a huge amount of sense compared to Premiere. Premiere felt more intuitive to me. Like it's just pick up and it's like, oh yeah, okay, I see what you're doing there. Even its integration with After Effects and things like that, a bit of me was like, okay, no, I understand what it's doing here. Whereas DaVinci is a bit more obscure about how its parts hang together. In theory, that makes it flexible, but it also means there are some things where you think, oh, it'd be easy just to do that. Oh no, how do I do that? I have that sort of thought process quite a bit with Resolve, where it's just like, why is this difficult?
So how do you do the animations then and stuff without After Effects?
So DaVinci Resolve has this thing called Fusion built in that used to be, I think, a separate product, but it's kind of built into the thing now. And it's a node-based effect pipeline that you then can do things with and animate against. And then you make a Fusion clip, and then you try and overlay that onto the actual normal timeline. And sometimes it works, sometimes it's a bit flaky.
I see those interfaces sometimes where you have the nodes and pipelines for doing shaders in Unreal or whatever, or in Blender and stuff like that. I'm like, is that actually the best user interface for doing that? I guess it is. Yeah, pros use it.
I guess there is a logic to it, but it has a reliance on you remembering exactly what that logic is and what the tools are in order to do the step by step. Like in one video, like a couple of videos, because I reuse it. There's like a glass shatter effect, and that took a reasonable amount of learning for me to pull off, because it's like, oh, okay, now I need to generate a map of vertices on this thing. I need to then copy the texture of the video across each one of these potential polygons and have it map across. Oh, but that's not rendering quite right. So I need to change how the texture mapping onto those vertices works. So I need nodes for each one of those steps to define it all. And it's like, can I if I was to remember exactly how I did that now, I can't. I'm gonna. It was quite complex, and I'll have to go back and look at what I did, or find the same tutorial video that I basically cribbed off. It's not unless you're doing it day to day, it's pretty complex to get into that stuff. The other thing is just find some like online resources of like videos with alpha channel like effects, and then just layer those on top of something. That works too, like the smoke effects and little animations that other people have made. Production Crate have a whole bunch of free stuff, so it's worth checking that out.
Unfortunately for me, I don't need to do any fancy end effects, because I don't force us to make stupid promises about what they will be in my videos.
I guess you could just belt them on in Satisfactory,
and then I just read them off, and then I just end.
Yeah, you can just belt them on in Satisfactory anyway. It's fine.
Yeah, I could.
The belts. Yeah, I don't know what Premiere's like. I used to run into a whole bunch of issues with Premiere as well, like channels and its various lanes going out of sync with each other, unless I normalize the videos and all the audio to exactly the same formats. Then it would all go it would all start to drift, and sometimes it wouldn't drift in the UI, and sometimes it would drift in the encode process. You wouldn't know it was balked until you'd finished, which sucked. None of that really happens in DaVinci. I sometimes get encodes that aren't very good quality or just fail. I think the bugs are more up front in DaVinci than they are in Premiere. But hopefully, Zach, you'll have a slightly better time of it, because it is a bit power hungry.
Well, I mean, I will hopefully have a better time than what I was doing on my old machine anyway, regardless.
But I tried it on my work Mac as well, and it didn't seem any better. So,
And you've got like a Mac desktop that's pretty powerful.
It's an M1 Mini, so it's not super powerful by today's standards, but it should be more powerful than my current desktop. And it,
in theory,
didn't behave any better.
Is it actually native, or is it doing what is it? Rosetta emulation?
No idea. Couldn't tell you. Yeah. There's the other thing as well. Is like I am only using. Inside the curtain here, I am only using DaVinci Resolve Free Edition, which does have some drawbacks in terms of like how much GPU utilization it can actually really do. Okay. So, I've been tempted many times about potentially buying the Studio version, because it's a bit like FL Studio in that it's got a lifetime. You buy it once, it's yours. Nice. So I've considered it quite a lot, but I think a lot of my problems may be overcome by just having more juice. Juice it. Yeah, DaVinci's cool, but tricky to learn.
Behind the curtain.
No, it's not the GIMP. It's like which is just tricky to use.
Maybe we should discuss the status of our fucking tooling here. Yeah, bring out the GIMP. I looked up on Wikipedia, and it is an explicit reference to Pulp Fiction, apparently.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, they arranged it on purpose.
Nice.
And the G was originally general image manipulation program, but they changed it to GNU to be part of the GNU project.
I see.
But yeah, it was on purpose a reference to the GIMP from Pulp Fiction.
Nice. But then where did their logo come from? Well, in fairness, they probably couldn't have just a guy with a ball.
They probably couldn't do that.
Just the logo is a dude with a ball gag. But as funny as that would be.
But yeah. So where are we with the demo? At the moment, we use Audacity, right? Is that
no,
right?
No. I use Mixcraft for recording.
Mixcraft. So what's the?
I use Audacity for my recording for this video.
Yeah, because I never got Audacity to do proper multi-track in a satisfactory way. It didn't record off multi-mics and split it out for me. It always ended up, for some reason, boiling it down to a single one. So Mixcraft is ASIO happy, so it gets on well with my Focusrite interface.
Yes, nice.
Does proper track splitting. It has I have a mixer on it, so I don't tend to adjust that on the fly, but on output at least, it's applying a bunch of pre-effects and gating based on who is talking. So like if I'm talking, for instance, it has a tendency to try and gate out the rest of the tracks and things like that, or vice versa. I've got some routing going on there, just to clean up the sound a little bit. A couple of compressors. It's and then I do an audio pass after that using Goldwave. I still use Goldwave. I still use a really ancient version of it as well. To do my final pass on the processing.
Love Goldwave.
Yeah, Goldwave's neat.
But Goldwave couldn't record to disk, right? Streaming. Right?
No, it can't do this. No.
It was all in memory.
Because we ran into problems with that in the early days of the Saladcast. Yeah, it doesn't hard disk record. It keeps everything in RAM. And if you have a problem, it's gone. And I do frequently run into problems, actually, even with Goldwave. Like I'll do a processing pass on it, and it will have some floating point error that then means it can't save the file. And it's like, well, balls, better start again. But I do just like how it processes. I'm sure I've been looking at Adobe's audio suite, and that's got some pretty cool things. Right? But I don't want to pay an Adobe subscription.
No,
I forget what it's even called, Sound Room or something like that. I don't know. No, I've lost it. I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, it's got some pretty neat features. It's got one of the things I saw you can do is it's got this really nice. You know how you get that spectrograph, I guess, of what is it, or a spectral analysis, I suppose, of a sound, where you can see the frequencies at which it's peaking and stuff like that.
It's
literally got some painting tools, so you can paint into that graph, or more interestingly, remove from that graph where you've got some audio you don't like. So the example I've seen is a bird tweet, because that has a very specific, nice, clean frequency. So it makes nice, clean lines on this spectral graph that you can then just paint out. And it's well, there you go. That's the bird noise removed. It's pretty neat.
Well, that's convenient. That's very convenient, isn't it?
Yeah. It's pretty neat. But yeah, try and avoid the noise in the first place. Top tip.
Yeah. That's always the best.
I know we have a lot of cars driving past my house and stuff, but it's not a lot great. Hopefully noise reduction gets rid of a lot of that, and I do some adjustments for the worst cases. Or if Miles is really kicking off in the background, then I'll try and edit that out.
It's still a mystery where all these cars are going. What?
I guess they're coming. They're probably coming from the A140 in Norwich and that area, and taking there's a route you can come down through Creting that will come right past this house as a way into Needham High Street, and yeah, that's probably the route they're going. I guess either that or All the Car Farm is just hella popular. There you go. That's my behind the curtain of the Saladcast.
Okay. Now we know. And we're still using TeamSpeak.
Yeah, TeamSpeak still sounds good. We could use Discord, to be honest, these days. Discord sounds pretty good these days. But
have you seen this? It's hilarious. Like, someone's in control of the TeamSpeak Twitter account or X or whatever the hell it is, and it's like just dragging Discord at any chance they can for some reason. Right. It's really stupid. But it's quite fun for, comedy value.
Yeah, has there been any, like, maybe potentially fake, but just for fun, like a Skype account turning up and being like, what?
It's like, what, Microsoft turn up? Like,
yeah. Well, they're like just some old branded Skype. Yeah. Like they just come out and unretire that account.
Yeah. That would be great.
Does Skype exist at all in any capacity?
I think it's absorbed into
Microsoft, right? So it's just like a...
Well, yeah, Skype for Business became
Microsoft.
Teams.
Yeah. But I think Teams became the thing, which doesn't make any sense, but Teams is now built into Windows as the way that you call your grandma, right?
Oh, is
really
it?
Weird.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's cool. And it's, why would it's called Teams, which makes sense for like a business product for what it actually is, but it is now built into, and you'll know that, Zach, right? Because presumably you're stuck with the new version of Windows.
Well, sure. It's not like I ever use that, though.
Yeah.
I only ever use Discord for the occasional times that I need to talk to people.
But maybe Skype still exists. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
I think Skype might be like still a native app, but I don't know.
People don't know. Every now and then I get like a WhatsApp call. People do that. It's or a Facebook call. Like, okay, that one's incredibly rare, but it has happened.
Some people call me on WhatsApp, but that's because WhatsApp's like my main messaging app.
Yeah.
And it's like a cross-platform Wi-Fi call, I guess.
Yeah, assuming you got data, it's all good.
Yeah.
At home, it's probably my better option than using the damn phone. But Signal's, I don't know what's happened to the 3 network, but Signal seems rubbish everywhere now. Absolute pants. Worst one, right? I don't know if did I talk about this on like my various long car journeys of this year, but like you pull up to a charger and it's like, oh, I need to try and sort this out on the app, and it's like, oh balls, there's no bloody phone signal. How am I supposed to do this? So you get out of the car and stand awkwardly near it, trying to get a bar, and then okay, it's sort of working, but I can't do it inside the car. Like heavens, it's not raining.
Clearly they need to have like the charger has like a USB plug that's just only attached to like an extended aerial. Just plug your phone into the charger port to then have that signal so you can actually enable it.
Yeah. I wonder if Tesla runs out into that issue. Where because they don't have most of those Tesla chargers, like none of them have a screen, right? So it's like, how do you can't interact with them even if you try.
Another example of the horrible nightmare of like, what do you do without a mobile phone nowadays?
Yeah.
The 2-factor just screws you instantly in most other cases.
Absolutely. Man, I've been having a week of this nonsense. Like, modern tech should be cool, right? It's like there's a whole bunch of modern tech stuff that is cool in theory, and I'm including my smart home in that, right? Cool in theory.
Yeah.
But the amount that it breaks is just too high. Like on anything. Like my smart home this week just had a bit of a meltdown because it just sort of decided to. There's a part of the Home Assistant routine you do where you're supposed to be in, like you can tie it up to Let's Encrypt and Duck DNS so you can access it remotely from outside your house, but in a secure way, like so it's proper certificates and all that. But for some reason that's failing, so my external access to Home Assistant is not on right now, and I don't really know why, and I don't quite know how to solve that. And it's like, well, okay, that's something's balked, but I'm not quite sure what. So that means, okay, I'll take a hit. I don't need necessarily to access Home Assistant remotely. It's fine. But then, like, other things all started failing as a result of that. Like some of the integrations with some of the gear in the house, like, just stopped working randomly, and it's like, okay, I need to solve this somehow. I got it all back working, and that it's like, but it's just it should be cool. My RoboVac, for instance, gets itself friggin' lost far too often. Like it'll get, like it has it's like my RoboVac's pretty cool in the sense that I can pick it up, put it down somewhere else, and it will figure out where it is based on the LiDAR. But if it gets itself like tangled in a cable for a hot second and I go and rescue it and put it back down, it doesn't figure out where it is again. So the map all ends up skewed off in a weird angle because it thinks it's where it was originally. And then it doesn't, and then it gets, then its routing all gets messed up because it tries to go through walls that it thinks are corridor. And it's, and then
surely that means it can't be using LiDAR then, right? But
well, I mean,
that implies that it's using like physical wheel tracking, right? It's counting the rotation.
I think it's clearly doing both to in some combination, but in some not great combination in some cases, and so it shifts the whole thing because it's trying to use the LiDAR.
You think it should like as soon as you pick it up, that should trigger it to realize it needs to re-LiDAR because its wheels are no longer in contact with the ground.
I think that's probably is what it's doing. But like, under circumstances where it gets itself tied in knots or something and then maybe breaks free of its own accord, it hasn't quite got the smarts to figure out that, oh, hang on, everything's different now. Maybe I'm the one that's in the wrong. It doesn't figure that out. And so that's annoying. It took it 3 attempts to do the living room today. I had to keep sending it back to be like, no, you've done a terrible job. Go do it again. You've been a very naughty boy, very bad D-bot.
Back to the corner where your charger is.
Yeah. No, actually, I need you out of the corner right now. I need you working. Work, robots, work. So I've just had a week of that. Work's been a bit like that as well, where I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus on a public podcast, but you stumble upon a bit of work that you thought was done. And then you go and look at it yourself and you're like, oh, this is clearly not done. Oh, this is not good. Oh, this doesn't really work right. Oh, for the love of... Right, I guess I'm doing that now.
You can't throw it back to them and be like, this doesn't work. Can you fix it?
No. Unfortunately not. not currently.
Okay.
Politics. So yeah, I've had... I don't know. Modern world should be easy, but it's not. It's not. All the stuff to make your life cool is flawed in fundamental
ways. It's really diminishing returns at the moment with technology. Even with the AI stuff, it's like it's not really making things that much easier. Some things, but I don't know.
Current irritation. I have a crap dishwasher. Like that needs to be sorted. It just doesn't clean some things.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what's going on. It just leaves particulate everywhere.
Yeah.
But was it always like that, or is it just become crap?
Yeah, it's kind of always like that. It's a bit of a crapshoot whether you get a good clean or a bad clean. Presumably there's something in it or some food substance that for some reason just gets flung everywhere rather than... It looks like someone's herbed up your plates or your glasses, basically. Like someone's just
herbed them up.
Yeah, like...
It's herbed these up.
Like it's like if it was glitter...
All that garlic sauce that you're...
Oh, probably, yeah.
It's just annoying the things whenever I'm not as obsessive as my brother is on this, but like I do put a bit of research in whenever I'm buying something.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Trying to find the new thing. But when you buy a house or something, it's like you're kind of sort of at the mercy of whatever dishwasher. Yeah,
the dishwasher sort of came with a house. So,
yeah, and you can't. And I don't have much like that, but obviously I have the fridge and the cooker and then I bought the washing machine off the. I could have bought my own, but I couldn't be bothered. So I was like, I'll buy it off the previous owner or whatever. And it's like fine. But like if I'd done the research and stuff and bought it myself, it would be a different one. Yeah. And it would be at least slightly better.
Yeah. I think that dishwasher's got to go. The Bosch. And we used to have a Smeg, and the Smeg was way, way better.
My stuff is all Smeg.
Yeah.
But I didn't choose it, but it's all Smeg.
But then that's half the battle right now. Now it's not just like, oh, I've got to get a dishwasher. I've got to get a dishwasher that fits in this precise hole. And
is that not standardized? I'm sure you've got a normal.
I think it is a normal size, yeah. But there are some that aren't, right? There's always one, right? That's a slightly odd size.
Yeah.
Or the back of it is different, right? So it doesn't slide into where your pipe work is.
Not quite compatible, yeah.
Yeah. I think what did we run into that? Oh, it's probably one of the washing machines I've had over the years where it didn't fit behind because of where they put the bloody outlets.
And it's not like a fun, exciting purchase, is it? Dishwasher, like it's not.
No,
Not
at all. It's not like going out. It's like
I mean,
should I
not
buy
unless
a
you went
Steam
like extremely hardcore and just bought something insanely expensive. It had all the cool features, but we're not going to do that.
Yeah, that would fail immediately because it'll be AI driven and online, and then they're like connected to my smart home that decided to balk itself. It's like you're going to be annoyed with it for some other reason. Even little, Alexa wouldn't even link devices together to like play music across the house. It sort of suddenly decided, no, I can't do that because some of your devices are attached to a different Wi-Fi network. And I'm like, no, you're not. How is that even a thing? Well, okay, I know how that was a thing. Some of them could have been on the AC network and some of them could have been on the old legacy network, but they weren't. They're all on the same network. And it was just like fighting me and saying, no, you can't do that. And it's like, what? Why?
It's just so annoying how things that work fine just randomly decide to fail.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Yeah. And it's something you haven't used for a while. Like if you use it every day, obviously you're going to notice immediately if some problem and fix it. But if it's like, on occasion, like just now I was changing the sheets on my bed. And I was like, that's quite a boring thing to do. So I thought, I'll cast this podcast and I'll using AirPlay to my Sonos in the bedroom so I can listen to the podcast while I'm doing the chores or whatever. And, I hit the AirPlay, I hit the button, nothing comes out of the speakers.
Right, yeah.
Fiddle around with it for 3 mintes, starts working. It's like, what was wrong with it? I have no idea.
That was literally me this morning while I was cleaning the house. Just couldn't get Alexa to play across all of the speakers downstairs. It just was having none of it. What do you mean? There's a group right here. I'd ask it to play and it would go, basically, I don't know about the group downstairs. And I'm looking at it in the app going, what's this then? Like, how do I show you that there's a group in the app that is called the exact thing you just said doesn't exist? What do I do? And then it just sort of started working. I don't get it. Like half the time I ask it to play music on Spotify, it just goes, shuffle. No, it doesn't like me asking it to shuffle on Spotify. And Spotify will turn around and go, or Alexa will say like, that's not supported. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean shuffle is not supported? It is.
Shuffle not supported. Yeah.
It's like the voice commands are somehow getting infected by like those like non-standard characters that you get in text, where it's like you said shuffle, but the U turned into like a weird symbol that's not technically
what, like souffle? It's not like I'm typing a password in. Yeah, sorry. So that's been really bugging me this week. Just things not working.
I've got something this week. I actually got a new gadget because that's the thing. Is like I don't know, first world problems, but it's diminishing the returns. Like we've got most things kind of sorted, except they sort of are a bit unreliable or whatever. And when you get a new version, like I just updated to iOS 18, and it's like it looks a bit different. It doesn't actually do anything new that I need.
Right? Yeah.
But I actually got something this week where I was like, this is fucking awesome. And it's a guitar thing. So I play electric guitar and I have all of these like pedals and I have done for years. Like I had the biggest pedal board I could possibly get like years ago. And I filled it up with pedals. And that's basically when I stopped buying pedals, which was a while ago now.
I filled the box.
But for a while I like filled the box. But I got this thing this week and this is actual new technology. Because the thing about a lot of guitar pedals are like analog electronics, like you can try and make like, especially for like distortion sounds and stuff and like overdrive and things, like the digital equivalent just all sounded bad for years. And so analog electronics always sounds better. And the thing about those is like, they don't change. People come up with new designs of, rearranging the diodes and the, whatever they are.
Valves.
The chips and stuff. What are they? Transistors, diodes, and some of them use integrated circuits. But But basically, if you got like one of these fuzz pedals in the 90s, it was just as good in the, it's not like other technology that is like the new version is probably better. In this case, it's like, well, maybe the old version was probably better.
Oh yeah, and it's all subjective because it's all
exactly
sound
it's all subjective. Yeah. Exactly. And then there's like starting in the 80s, there's like there's some things that are clearly kind of, depending on what you're going for, are clearly better to do digitally. For example, delay. If you actually want an echo that is a precise replication of what you just played, half a second later, then obviously recording it essentially with a digital and then replaying that in perfect clarity is better than anything you could do with an analog circuit.
Yep.
Although, of course,
tape delay is kind of fun and has a nice sound. Yeah.
That all the different analog ways of doing that have their own sound. All the way from tape delay to the analog electronic version is called the bucket brigade circuit, which like it's very clever. It keeps like the sound in a kind of analog capacitor buffer, right? But it degrades quite quickly, that sounds quite cool.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously the digital is like, it sounds perfect. Like so like the 80s.
That's the thing I'd quite like to learn how to do digitally a little bit is, that how a lot of old dub and things like that kind of have they use delays, but they feed it back through an analog circuit in such a way that it sounds worse and worse and crunchier the longer you leave it on. And it's like,
I've got a Memory Man delay, which is the 80s. And the thing about those is like, so that's the one that was like in the 80s, they managed to get decent enough resolution with analog electronic components to actually make a decent sounding delay. And it makes that cool, very warm, decaying sound. And that's like the U2 sound, basically. It's that's what the Edge grabbed himself in. And it used to be in a huge box. I've got a smaller one now but the thing was that once digital started taking over, literally the chip, which was like a Panasonic chip that did that, just went out of, they don't make them.
Right.
Obviously, because why would anyone? Because it's only worth manufacturing them if they're used at a huge volume. And the only people that want them now are these weird guitarists. so like for a long time, it was like one manufacturer bought all the stock and they had it in a warehouse and they just gradually used up the chips, right, until they ran out. So I have one of those anyway. But the thing that's changed in the past, 15 years is modeling, so-called. So that's basically, I think what it means is they literally use, instead of trying to, it's AI, I think. Probably.
Yeah, it's probably machine learned.
It's machine learning
in a way.
Exactly. So machine learned emulation of electronic components and analog components and analog amplifiers specifically. So it started with like amplifier modeling, and of course that's what you get in your DAW. You probably have some of those, but that has come on a hugely long way. It used to sound bad, now it sounds good, really good. And that's a whole thing though. Like I've got like an analog, an old fashioned tube amplifier and all these analog pedals. But like what you can do is get like a modeling amplifier, which has all of and then you have a million options, right? And it's basically like a monitor speaker, I think. And then a quite reasonably powerful computer, basically, that emulates all these different amplifiers. But the good ones of those are actually expensive. Like, if you want, like, there's like Kemper. There's various brands that do this modeling, and of course they put a lot of effort into.
It's just the company of Robco.
Yeah, I think it's called Kemper. Kemper amps. Yeah, so if they've got your name, they're very expensive. And nowadays it's really weird. You can get so I've got like a Fender Princeton tube amp, for example. I think you were around when I bought it.
Yeah, I remember.
When I bought it in Cambridge. It's a little practice amp. But nowadays, like Fender, they make the same amps, like the same range with the same names, but they make like modeling versions. So basically you buy an amplifier which looks the same, but it has a computer instead of the tubes, and it's pinned to that model of that amplifier. And it sounds almost the same, even though it's faking it because it's a modeler, but it's a lot lighter. And more reliable, right? It doesn't have
and less power draw, presumably.
Yeah, exactly. Loads of arguably benefits, but it's a bit weird that you have what is probably a fairly general purpose computer that is like tied to this one amp model, and there's no switch. Presumably that amp is capable of running all the different models, but they sell it as if it's
yeah,
it's kind of weird.
If you had the other models, you could do that probably.
So I never bothered with any of that modeling stuff. Maybe one day I'll get into Kemper amps. But the thing that I got this week is this tiny little thing. It's called a Fender Mustang. I think Mustang is their name of their practice amp range, but it's called a Fender Mustang Micro Plus, and it is smaller than a phone. Like it's like the small. It's like a small, like half the size of a remote control or something. I don't know. And it has a jack on it, on a hinge, and you just plug it directly into your guitar's output jack. And then you plug a 3.5mm headphones into it, and it has a bunch of models on there. Just obviously not the best quality ones because it's a tiny little thing, but good enough for practice, basically. And you can just flick through 70 different settings that are pre-built, and with a bunch of amplifier models. And it sounds, obviously it's not super great, but for practice, it's this tiny little thing. It's got like 4 hours of battery life. You can charge it up, over USB-C. You just plug it in, put your headphones on, and bang! It's really cool.
All right,
and it's just something that never existed. When I started, right? It's tiny, and it has a little screen on it, and some buttons on the side, so you can switch between the amplifier modes or the settings. You can change the volume, out the headphones. Mm-hmm. It's got a built-in tuner, tap tempo for a delay sound. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but if you are doing the U2 sound, and you have one of those delays,
tempo timed delays and stuff.
Exactly, you want the delays to line up with the beat, so you just click it in time with the beat, and then the delays will be in time with the beat. So it's got all of that in this tiny little thing, and it's really cool. And it costs like 120 quid or something, 130 quid.
Nice. A little multi-effect. It's basically a multi-effects, but it's all
multi-effects in a tiny, tiny box that you just plug direct, that hangs off it's on a hinge, just hangs off the output of the electric guitar, and then you just plug headphones in. The only thing is that, of course, the headphones have to be wired because the latency would be too bad. You couldn't AirPods to it. So that's the one. It does have Bluetooth, but it's only it will pass through a source. So if you can be playing a song on YouTube on your phone, and you can play it to the device, and it will blend it through to your headphones, so you can practice alongside a song, right?
Okay, yeah.
Does that make sense? So it does have Bluetooth, but it's not the direction that it means, sure. You still have to have wired headphones.
It goes to it rather than from it, yeah.
Exactly. But it's really cool. I don't know. I think because for me, playing the electric guitar, it is a whole rigmarole to turn on the amplifier and get out all the effects pedals. And obviously it's loud, and you can play it quieter, obviously, but it's not as fun. And, whereas this, I could just sit on the sofa and other people could be around even, and I could be, not that that's happening, but you could be practicing. I think it's kind of revelatory almost. I think I will be playing more guitar just by having this tiny little thing. And so I thought that was a good example of finally something that's actually new, right? And it's actually, I think there has been one on the market for 3 years or something, previous version of it that I didn't notice or whatever, but this new one's got some extra features and stuff. But it's just something that didn't exist when I started that is pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, just looking it up. Yeah, it's pretty tiny.
Yeah, it's not big at all, and it sounds great. And I guess the clincher is it has a model of my amplifier, and it sounds like my amplifier.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So the only negative of this thing I've found is potentially for me is that the model that sounds like my amplifier, sounds authentically like my amplifier, but I prefer the model of the deluxe amplifier, right? Which now will eventually mean that one day I will have to buy the expensive deluxe amplifier, right? So that's quite clever marketing, I guess.
Or they'll do a Micro Plus Plus that actually has it in there, but it'll be a lot more expensive.
Yeah, no, it does. It has the model of the Deluxe and the Twin. But obviously it doesn't sound as good as a real amplifier, but it's making me think I would really like one day. I just don't have space. If
right,
I
see. So it's modeling the cabinet, but your existing speaker, essentially, or your existing cab might not actually be...
Well, there's a range...
it like properly. You see what I mean? Because I guess it's still, even though it's modeling it, it's still got to adjust it for whatever speaker it's coming out of. At the end of
in this case, it's just coming out of headphones, right?
Yeah.
In fact, it's the headphones I'm using right now that I use for the podcast. But I've got some other wired headphones. Maybe that would affect it, but it's literally the sound of it. Like, I like the sound of the Fender Deluxe reverb model, so I'm sure I would really like the sound of a real Fender Deluxe reverb.
I mean, I wonder if that was like always part of a licensing agreement. It's like, we'll allow you to put up the model of our thing on your device.
Well, that's it.
Because that will then cause people to buy the actual real one.
Exactly.
Oh, sure.
Well, that's the thing, because it's Fender branded. And so all the models of the Fender amps have the proper name, right? But then, which is typical of these modeling softwares, all the models of the not Fender amplifiers have to have a generic name.
Yeah.
Right. So, and they're clearly like that you can tell from like it also comes from the accompanying app. So you can actually edit the presets and the amp models on your phone and just transmit it to the device, which is really nice. It's not like full blown, like you just get like you just get a slot for an amplifier and you get like 2 pre-amp, effect slots and 2 kind of post or like effects loop slots, so you put delay after and like overdrive before or whatever, and there's only so many options, but yeah, you can see the graphic or what are clearly Marshall amplifiers, but they can't call them that, right? Or like Orange or High Watt or even Vox, like all the different amplifiers, they just have to have names which are like, oh, it's the British 70s British sound.
Yeah.
It's like
the
clearly a Marshall.
amp.
Yeah. So that's quite fun.
Yeah, I haven't done music I haven't actually done a bit of music for a long time. Time has not been on my side of late, but but yeah.
A deluxe reverb is not actually.
No.
Oh no! Dan has looked at the cost of a thing.
live purchase. Here we go.
They're like the same price. What the hell? Obviously, I don't have room for a deluxe. Well, no, I think the deluxe is definitely bigger. I think it still only has 1 speaker though, because the Twin has 2 speakers, hence the name.
Right.
Wow, they're only £100 apart these days. That's weird. Anyway.
Because all those digital parts in them, they're probably the same.
Yeah, it's true.
Slightly more markup.
Yeah, how much is the modeling one? So, yeah, I'll look that up.
I've been meaning to have a weird play with like a convolution reverbs and stuff like that. Basically, load one sound into your reverb that can be something completely different. It could be someone saying "Happy Salad," for instance, and then that become the imprint of that becomes the reverb. Like, I really want to hear what that sounds like. Just messing with that a little more. I've had convolution reverbs and I've used them before, but I haven't really super messed with it.
Oh, that would be
like,
cool.
Some of the stuff I could probably do with that could be really weird.
Wow, the modeling one is quite a lot cheaper, which makes sense, right? I guess.
Of course it would. Yeah.
The modeling one is 900 and the real one is 1500.
Still a lot of money.
Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, Fender Mustang Micro Plus, 120 quid. Get yourself one of those if you're an electric guitarist. You will not be disappointed, in my view.
There we go. Audio review.
Audio reviews. Now, back to video games.
But first, brief foray into TV. Oh, I like the usual. Get this out of the way. I would say Only Murders in the Building season 3, weakest of the 3 so far.
Oh, okay. Wow.
That wasn't so good. It was. I think Gnome said it before we were going to watch it. It was just like, yeah, you're not going to like this one as much. And I'm like, why? And it's like, oh, it's because it's theatre based and musical based. And it's like, oh god. So yeah, and even that aside, the general mystery wasn't quite as good. The tone changed a little bit. It was a little darker, a little less light than the previous 2 series. It got better at the end, but the mid bit was kind of a bit too heavy. Well, it's not supposed to be a heavy show, do you know what I mean? It's not like it was bad, but I don't know, it's not really what I was going into it for. They changed too much, and I'm a bit worried. Like season 4, by the sounds of it, might be a jump the shark moment because it's not. It's in a different place potentially.
Question my brother was asking yesterday is, what would you say most consistent TV show? It's quite rare to have a consistent TV show. The thing that
Sopranos?
I thought... Yeah, even The Sopranos has a little bit, in my view, of a dip kind of 2/3 of the way through. But it is very consistently good. Yeah, so that's a good shout. I think Curb Your Enthusiasm is like basically consistently good the whole way through.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue that, as far as sitcoms go, like Friends actually is fairly steady, right? Friends is pretty steady all the way through.
Yeah, you could definitely... Yeah, I'd make a case for Friends, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a toughie, actually.
Then you're getting into the problem of, you're getting to the problem of, what is the difference between consistent and, not ever advancing and therefore getting boring.
Yeah.
Is Friends actually good for being consistent for that long?
Or would it have been better if it had changed its nature a bit, evolved a bit?
No, I don't think so. Actually, in the case of that, I think that there is merit sometimes to a show being what it is, and thus you go into it, and it's like, no, this is exactly what I needed right now.
Well, and in the case of Friends, because it's older, it's not as obviously broken up into seasons in the same way that streaming stuff is nowadays. Obviously, it was broken into seasons because it came out on TV, and therefore, years passed.
Yeah, and it has
not in the same way that streaming shows are.
Yeah, and it has a through line, but each episode in Friends feels like a good standalone thing, right? You don't always. Well, okay, there's deviations from that, but they do go plot heavy, but still.
Was Friends must have been 24 freaking episodes every season. It's on more of the year than it's off right at the time. In the 90s,
I think so. But
it's crazy.
But actually, compared to a lot of shows, 10 seasons probably isn't. I mean, things like Big Bang outran Friends and stuff like that.
True.
And Big Bang's definitely a show that I wouldn't say was consistent. Its tone definitely shifted fairly early on. Got too caught up in standard sitcom affair rather than being all about the geekery, which is why everyone loved it in the first place. But
that's such a weird show that
they grew up. That was the problem, right? They became regular
they
people,
became non-geeks.
Yeah, that was kind of the problem. They became less weird. I guess every show. It's the same.
Move on from TV into.
Well, the only thing I wanted to say, the only other thing I wanted to say is I watched a couple more episodes of Bear season 3. Okay, episode 2 you get a normal ass episode, high tension, high stress. Episode 3. Bearing in mind that you just came off the back of a 40-minute montage in episode 1, is another bloody montage.
I mean,
it's
stretching the patience, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really starting to lose me. I don't think you're not
alone in that.
I don't think episode 3 is a bad. I don't think it's a bad episode, but it's just.
I've got the whole thing downloaded, and I don't really feel the draw, as it were. When I'm like, oh, what shall I watch with my food or whatever? I don't feel at the moment with the season 3. I'm not like, oh, I'll watch one of those.
Yeah, it's losing me. There's less of a. It doesn't feel as strong. It feels like the plot was secondary currently.
Yeah, I think that's a common feeling. I think.
Yeah, so there's that. I did also notice that Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is coming off of Netflix soon, so Zach, we better get around to that.
Oh no!
Oh man, gotta watch that. Is
it going off before Christmas?
I don't know. I'll figure it. I think it might be, but yeah, I think it's.
Damn it!
I'll double check. But we were holding off for you, Dan, weren't we? But Fast and Furious kind of got in the way. Then,
yeah, that's true.
But yeah, we might have to just skip ahead. Get some Knuckles in your life.
Just can't wait for Shadow.
It's gonna be so good.
Reeves. It's genius. Yeah. All right, time for video game news.
Kind of. I want to very briefly mention YouTube ad land as a transition, I guess, between TV and video games. And this time, not
your
so much
favorite
of a,
land, YouTube ad land. Yeah,
not so much of a complaint this time, just a sort of funny thing that happened, because one of the few, like, I guess, ads that is in the relevant zone for me, like, this is where the algorithm has actually succeeded, I suppose. Even though I'm not, like, I still have personalization turned off or whatever, so it's just getting this by whatever non-personalized data. But I still see ads for Eve, basically.
Oh, okay.
So I still get those quite frequently. But, like, one of the most recent ones, and I think, like, I don't know why they've just made these, big new ads, because I see like relatively old ones quite frequently still that have been hanging around for like a couple of years at this point. But the newer one that just came up is basically an advertisement for like free, as in the race in the game. And I'm like, boo, because like I was Glent, like the enemy.
Oh, right.
I don't know if that's just because that's the first one of these that they put out and they're going to do like one of these for all four of the races, or whether it's just like I've just randomly been given the Caldari one.
That's quite reassuring that they don't apparently have the analytics on you to target you with the right race adverts.
Maybe, if that is how this has happened.
So they got close enough to give you Eve, but not close enough to give you your
Glent.
Yeah, your glentedness. What's the sort of like if you belong to is it a possessive noun? Was it galentine or?
I don't know if I've ever seen
galentish.
What the word for that is in Eve.
Galish.
It might just be galent again. Good. It might be one of those situations where they just use the same word.
Oh, you are galent, not
Yeah,
we are.
Because that's like Caldari, obviously, is also that.
Yeah.
Actually, I think all of them might be, I guess.
I
think Armar might be the one that has, like, Armarian.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sounds better than galentish.
I thought the Galentine was good, I think.
Duncan Galentine.
Yeah, Duncan Galentine.
For a series of space gyms.
Anyway, game news.
Hey, I did manage to get YouTube ad blocked on my Steam Deck, so that was fun.
Oh yeah,
that's
the result of that last week.
Yeah, that's my current solution for watching YouTube on my TV.
Oh, nice. Oh, good work.
So yeah, I have to use a controller on a cut. It's not as convenient as getting it running through like your TV as you would normally. I do have to use a Bluetooth controller to my Steam Deck, start the Steam Deck, start the YouTube app on the Steam Deck, and then browses it with the controller acting like a mouse. It is basically Chrome just running inside.
Yes. So you say the YouTube app, but it's just running Chrome and auto-navigating to YouTube.
Indeed, that's all it is. But obviously it's then loading Chrome extensions, which block the YouTube ads. So it's if you're settling down and watch anything for any length of time, preferred way. Functions just fine. So I did that. Anyway,
seen the potential ad apocalypse version 2 or 3 or whatever it is at this point that's supposedly coming to fix that.
Yeah.
Fixing quotation marks, obviously.
Yeah, it might be the time to switch browser or something soon, because like Chrome are saying that things like uBlock Origins and AdBlock are against the extension term of service, which obviously they're disputing. It's like, so basically Google is saying, oh yeah, you can block ads as long as they're not ours. And it's like, 2 fingers fresh. All right, let's do some news. Very shortly after our last podcast, where I mentioned, hey, the PS5 Pro has been teased. It's probably been leaked by those little graphics. Hey, sure enough, Sony go, by the way, here's the PS5 Pro.
Here it is.
Everyone's saying the meme together.
Oh, what's the? Oh, I don't know. What's the meme?
$599 US.
Oh, that meme.
No, how much is it? $699 US dollars.
Yeah. It's $699 US, £699, 799 euros. It's crazy money. And in theory, and apparently a couple of sources have checked this, it's like actually if you adjust for inflation, it's pretty comparable to the $599 US
right
price point.
PS3, but that was the base model, like PS3.
Yeah, that was definitely the base. It was crazy money.
That was crazy. But it had Ridge Racer. This doesn't have Ridge Racer, so
it does not have Ridge Racer. No,
so that's a bit of a problem.
Well, I don't know if it's even back compat with PS3's Ridge Racer 7 because there hasn't been one since. And no, I don't count Ridge Racer Unbounded, which I think also was PS3. Yeah, so what do we feel about...
There's a Mark Carney reveal.
Cerny,
Cerny. Sorry. Why is that Carney? Who's Carney?
Okay, Carney from The Bear. He's chefing up the PlayStation.
Okay, Mark Cerny. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, Mark Cerny. He did what was a 7... It wasn't very long. It was like a...
No, short presentation
on what on the improvements. Basically coming at it in the similar way as like the Pro... well, no, it's Digital Foundry had an interesting take on this that I quite like. It's like they're sort of Sony is coming out basically undoing kind of what the PS4 Pro and Xbox Series X did, which was, if you think about the introduction of those half steps, basically is the reason why we started ending up with the performance versus quality mode options.
In the first place,
because suddenly you had a new bit of hardware, and it's like, oh, now you have a choice on how you prefer to do this, because these consoles can now do 4K. But if you're not fussed about 4K, have some more frames instead. Mark Cerny comes out and says, well, that's kind of stupid. So why don't we just do both? Because we'll give you more GPU power with which to do it. And it's like,
so they're like, this is the 4K 60 console.
Yep, kind of, yeah. Even though, technically PS4 could do it if you coded it that way, it's just like, hey, this is what we could be doing. And so here you have some very weirdly presented cutaways of games. I found it really strange how they presented these in like these little windows inside the presentation of the video. Like here's the difference between Spider-Man running in performance and Spider-Man running in quality. And here's it running with both, or here's Ratchet and Clank running in quality mode, but at 60 now. Yeah, isn't that good? And it's like, but they were all done in this weird little frame in the middle of the frame. Like, why not show it nice and big and beautiful? And it's like, it was an odd video. Like, not gonna lie, it was a very odd presentation. And it's, I don't know. I think it's exactly what, other than the price, which I think is surprisingly high, I think the it's exactly what everyone expected it to be. It's like it's exactly what Series X was. It's exactly what PS4 Pro was, and that is a GPU upgrade and very little else.
I was saying last time I was hoping it would be like the One X in that it would be smaller form factor, but it's not.
It's
the
not.
same.
Nope, it's the same. Yeah.
Which I suppose is physics. I guess I don't know.
And they're not selling and thanks to like PS5's slim model, there is no version of the PS5 Pro with a disc drive, so you're gonna have to buy that separately. So and that's like $100 or something. That disc drive is expensive for what it is. So it's if you want a not all digital version of the console, it's like you are paying out your nose.
So the consensus seems to be that the price is because there's no real competition and there's no pressure for them to sell at a loss.
Exactly. And Microsoft haven't said anything at all about doing a half step. And there's the only thing we've had hints of is that they're doing a potential refresh of the design of the Series X. Like maybe I think they've already said it's like I think we already know there's a digital version of the Series X coming as in one where they just take the drive out. but then there's the leak that happened a while back where they might be making a cylindrical one rather than a fridge-shaped one, as a sort of refresh.
Right.
Maybe their Series X Slim, Series XS. I don't know. Don't know what you'd call it. So yeah, there's absolutely no hint of a half step from Microsoft at the moment. So they're kind of, as I say, they're kind of on their own. They're kind of,
I feel like this is the first real, because they know it's not a mass consumer device. Because if you're a normal person, there's no reason to buy this over the base model.
No, there's a huge amount of people that still don't have 4K capable TVs.
Yeah, but even if you do, I don't know, I mean, obviously it's better, this Pro, but this feels like a true, this Pro name. Obviously the Pro name in general is ridiculous because no one's a fucking professional video gamer. I guess some people are, sure. but Apple have established that the Pro name is they've done it with they did it with a MacBook Pro makes sense because it was for professionals who needed more power to do graphics work and stuff like that. Yeah. But then they started applying it to phones and earbuds and things. Sure. It's this is the Pro, and now it just means this is the higher tier. The higher tier.
Yeah, but in Apple land, it's higher tier, right? Because then you've got Pro Max and
right, yeah.
Isn't there an Ultra tier above that now as well? They've kind of effed it all.
Well, it is with the chips, but with the product line, it is just normal and Pro. Generally, Pro Max phone just means it's the bigger one, the really big one.
Oh, I see.
But this feels unlike the PS4 Pro, which just felt like a mid-generation update. It genuinely but it was a much better experience.
It was kind of meaningful at that point in time because that was that was the cusp of 4K becoming accessible, right?
Exactly.
So it was well timed then.
Exactly. Whereas this really feels like a 2-tier existing at the same time. This one's the one for maniacs who have more money than sense.
Yeah, it's like Sony came in and looked at it and were like, "Oh, we kind of like what Microsoft are doing with the S and X, but let's just make a more X, an X plus."
Yeah, exactly. It's it's a similar strategy except the upper rung on both sides, right? Which I think is probably the right way. I mean, that works for iPhones, right? Maniacs buy the Pro one with the ridiculous cameras for no reason when the base one's perfectly fine. And so I think that it sort of makes sense. And the price also
sort of makes sense because it has got my brain going as someone who hasn't yet bought a PS5 going, well, why would I get the PS5 when there's this better one? But then my smart person brain kicks in and goes, okay, we're probably not that far away from PlayStation 6.
Right.
And in a weird way, actually PlayStation 6, news on this in a moment, backwards compatibility is becoming more and more of a thing. And even then, remasters of old games are becoming more and more of a thing, especially on Sony's side. So it's actually, if I was to go PlayStation right now, I don't know.
I think
the Pro probably still sounds stupid, right? Because it's not.
Yeah, I think for you, because this is the people who are have the most problem with this. I think it would make sense is someone in your position who's waited. And now there's the choice or whatever, and it's but
it hasn't come with price reductions on the regular model. It hasn't come with anything if the PlayStation 5 has actually increased in value over its life cycle, which is
silly, isn't it?
Bizarre.
But I think if you wanted to play PlayStation exclusive games, even now that the Pro has come out, you should get the base one. I think because it's fucking perfectly great. This is it's definitely for the kind of people that buy the stupid graphics card, right? This PlayStation. It's just interesting that has come to consoles now.
Yeah, there's a little bit of me hoping, with the slim models and stuff. I don't know if the slim models actually been released in this country yet. I feel like I haven't seen it about.
Right,
but
that would be the one.
Yeah, when these shifts come about, it's well, maybe the original on eBay will start coming down a bit. There's a little bit of me going maybe the secondhand market's going to be all right because it is just they are just so expensive. This generation, and it's
exactly
and given my current position with time, actually, it's I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable with waiting these days than I think I was previous generations.
I don't think it's hard to know, but I don't think they're making as much back on the games as they used to because there just aren't as many games and people aren't buying as many games for their consoles.
I mean, this is the thing. Like the discourse around Astrobot has been hugely positive, right? Except the one thing, everything is that has been nagging at people, like off the back of Astrobot, and obviously it's thing where it's basically like recalling PlayStation's greatest hits, right? That's its thing. It's a nostalgia trip in a way through PlayStation's past. And it's like, oh, how much of that is modern era? And it's next to none of it.
Yeah.
Because Sony just aren't putting out very many games. And it's like, oh, that's true of everyone. That's not just Sony's fault, but like Sony don't have even little games that are like indie darlings or anything like that. Like just they're not doing it. There isn't much modern IP they can really throw at this thing. So when they go back and they bring in like Parappa or Ape Escape and they're referencing things like that, and everyone's like, oh yeah, remember when PlayStation used to do all this weird cool stuff all the time? And it's like they just don't do that now. They'd much rather back Concord.
Right.
Man, wouldn't it be hilarious if there was like a Concorde thing in Astrobot? But
that would be funny. I think they saw that coming. Maybe let's hold off on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think PS5 Pro. I think it sort of makes sense. And the other thing is like people on Twitter saying, I can understand why people are making fun of it for the very high price, and also. Like normal people looking at the screenshots can't see much difference, but like I've watched enough. I've watched enough Digital Foundry that when I see the side by side, I'm like, yes, it's clearly better. On the Pro.
The funniest thing is like Digital, and I think Digital Foundry lent into this. They did a was it Final Fantasy VII Rebirth comparison?
Oh yeah,
and they called it night and day. But the screenshot they used as the thumbnail, it's like there is no visible difference on that thumbnail. It's hilarious, and of course everyone then cottoned on to that, and it's like
But I watched that video, and it is clearly better. Right,
oh, absolutely! Yeah, it's running at 60 now.
I don't know about it is doing that game in particular, but I think there was some problem basically with the performance mode. Is basically blurry on the base.
Yeah, it's running at a fairly low resolution.
Yeah, but I would probably play Final Fantasy in quality mode at 30. Probably
it's fine. It's absolutely fine. Yeah. That's whenever I've seen it in action, and that's not very often, admittedly, but I've seen it running at 30, and it's a great looking game.
Like I'd say most games, I'd probably choose the performance mode, but like for Final Fantasy, I'd probably just choose quality.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing actually, like cause based on was it the Star Wars Outlaws and stuff like that, and the coverage on that. A bit of me was just like, I think I'd be okay playing this at 30. I don't think I need the 60. It's like normally I'm a 60 diehard. It's like if the choice is there, that is my choice. But there are some games now where I look at it and go, that probably is the better experience in 30.
Like we always used to play Halo at 30, and that's clearly better at 60. But like. It was fine. It was a good game.
Well, it took them a few attempts to get it right at 60 as well. Don't forget.
Like true.
Master Chief Collection dropped the ball on it at first, but but they got there. They fixed it.
Yeah.
So on top of that, Sony have sort of announced. Again, just sort of adding to that whole like, oh god, what state is Sony's game division actually really in right now? That they are basically planning to just keep remastering games, with their most recent remaster going to be Horizon Zero Dawn, a PS4 Pro game, because that came out. Horizon Zero Dawn was one of the first games to come out that had PS4 Pro support baked in and a 4K output option, right? And it's like, so it was late PS4. And now they're going, we're going to remaster that for a PS5 version. And it's like, really? The bit of me's just like, what are you going to do to it? Is it actually, it's just going to run at 60, isn't it? Presumably. Or they'll update some of the assets to be like Forbidden West, or is that what it was called? The sequel?
Forbidden West.
They'll update the assets to be like that and stuff like that. But like, come on now. As far as games that don't need remasters, this is sort of on the Last of Us level of pointlessness. Sony make something. Spend your money making something new. Come on. I guess remasters are comparatively cheap. Come on, that's obviously why they're doing it. business.
Well, presumably this one is extremely cheap.
Yeah, because there's not going to have to do much to it. Yeah, and they've already got experience from making the PC version of it, right? So must be an easy one. Why does that have to be a paid remaster at that point? It's annoying. It's frustrating. However, it might play off to people like me who are waiting for PlayStation 6, because it's reported to be staying with AMD as its chipset manufacturer, as reports of Intel losing out on the deal have emerged. So that means good news for backwards compat, because it's the same chipset. Well, it's not the same chipset, but it's the same manufacturer, so it should be relatively easy to translate. If there's any translation even needed, it's all just PC tech now.
It's all just x86 and it's stuff.
Yeah. So there's that. So that's Sony news, I think.
You don't want to talk about Yakuza news?
I'm getting to that. That was going to be my last thing, but yeah, all right.
Okay.
Let's.
Is that not Sony news? I don't know.
No, it's RGG
Sega
news. It's Sega.
Fair.
So yeah, there's I guess I was starting to wonder actually. Like it's been a minute since we've had a Like a Dragon announcement, and the cadence that those games come out is usually so fast that it would be a surprise if they didn't do at least one a year. Sure enough, Like a Dragon, Yakuza Pirate in Hawaii turns up to fulfill that request, and will launch pretty much a year after Infinite Wealth did. It's Majima as a pirate.
Naturally.
And it looks freaking amazing. Like, I'm so on board for this. Because, oh my God, you have to watch that trailer because it's unbelievably stupid. Because, like, if you think about the last time they've done, like mad spin-offs, I guess the craziest one was Ishin, I suppose, in some respects. And it's like, let's do Yakuza, but we'll do it in feudal Japan. But they presented it as a kind of alternate universe thing. This isn't. This is modern day, but yet somehow there are still gangs of Japanese criminals taking to the seas around Hawaii in galleons.
Okay.
It's
galleons.
Yeah, proper old school boats. And there's like a whole there's a like pirate island kind of thing, that sort of the coves where all the pirates hang out, and it's called Madlantis.
What the fuck?
Oh man, but Madlantis appears to be this game's equivalent of like Purgatory, the sort of like casino and debauchery area that itself was a boat in The Man Who Erased His Name. Yeah, they are going so absurd, and they don't give a monkeys, and I'm here for it. Oh my gosh.
You're always there for it.
I know. It just looks incredible. Apart from one thing, and I think Zach was right you sort of mentioned this before the podcast, is like possibly a bit of asset reuse going on. And I know Yakuza is like well known for doing that, but they actually show clips of you being in the Hawaiian city in which Infinite Wealth is set. So it seems like they're doing a sort of like, okay, it's not in Kamurocho anymore, whatever, like, and they used Kamurocho how many billion times, but they're reusing the Hawaiian city they made for Infinite Wealth. But it seems like they might be putting the traditional combat mechanics on it rather than, the RPG like combat mechanics of Infinite Wealth. So it's, possibly a little thing. It looks like Majima's doing like the cycling mini game that's in Infinite Wealth, for instance, the sort of crazy taxi pizza delivery mode. So there's probably going to be some mini game reuse, but the series that's never really been a problem for the series before. There'll be minor updates to all of these things that keep it interesting. It's not unusual for it. I think coming off the back of Infinite Wealth, that might feel like a bit of a letdown, but to me, I'm used to it. I think I'm numb to that as a problem. So perhaps don't take my enthusiasm for that as a good thing, but I think that's a fair criticism. but yeah, oh my days. Oh my! And I hope they go back to making. I mean, Majima. I hope they lean more into Majima being crazy. You know, like a bit nuts. Because the last couple of games I've played, admittedly, I'm miles behind the curve, but like he seemed toned down.
And no. Well, if he's in the pirate game, I'm sure they'll tone him back up.
Oh, he's got to be up to the max. And the whole eye patch thing fits in perfectly now.
Well, but that's too obvious, though. It's like that's the obvious joke, surely.
It's got to come up. Oh man, it looks so good.
Puts on a second eye patch for some reason.
It did. In fairness, his eye patch looked fancy now, like it was bejeweled in some way.
Eye patch upgrades.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, definitely. I literally saw the trailer this morning, and I was just sat on the couch on my own. It was one of those moments where it was just like I shouted out loud, "What?"
Sweet.
Also, the Like a Dragon show is still coming out this year, so get hyped for
really?
that. Yeah. So there's that. That's also happening. What else is going on? Slightly less positive news. Annapurna Interactive has basically killed itself. So all of I won't go into I don't fully understand exactly what happened. IGN do have a write-up of exactly what was going on there. Basically a whole bunch of office politics, mismanagement, all the usual stuff. But essentially all of the staff walked out. Like it wasn't a layoff, it wasn't a closure. Right. They decided to end it collectively. And that's incredible.
You're right, yeah.
I think it'd be really interesting to know what the real story is there. But yes, as I said, I haven't dug into that. But I just want to dig into the bigger picture. And there's like Annapurna seemed like one of the good guys, right? In terms of publishing, they had a bunch. Anytime their name turned up on an indie project, it was starting to feel like a badge of quality in a way. Like it's like this is at the very least going to be interesting. So yeah, it is a bit of a shame to see them go. And I wonder who will come in to fill the void, if anyone. Hey, Sony, you want some indie games?
Got this splintered studio that you could pick up the pieces for.
Well, they're a publishing arm. They're not a studio. Should point that out.
Yeah.
So,
publisher.
So that's a bit of a bummer. Just as much as, well, maybe several times more of a bummer, Microsoft continues to lay off loads and loads and loads of people, this time getting rid of 650 staff members.
Wow.
With Phil Spencer piping up to say these were in, quote, corporate or supporting roles across the gaming division. Presumably still off the back of the Activision Blizzard acquisition. They now, I guess, think they've got too much middle management, I suppose, these middling roles. And that's quite a lot of middle roles that I guess they don't want anymore or don't need. And I've heard a number of people claim that Activision Blizzard weren't exactly a full ship. They ran relatively lean was the quotes I heard, or read. So that's somewhat surprising. They have subsequently claimed that these layoffs aren't resulting in any game cancellations or studio closures as a direct result. So there's that, I suppose, but that's still an awful lot of people out of jobs. Kind of makes you think that buying Activision Blizzard might have been a mistake, guys. They haven't even put Call of Duty 6 isn't, or Modern Warfare. No, what is it? I've forgotten it. COD Block 6. What are we even talking?
What are we up to?
It's not even out yet. You know, it's like the acquisition's not even been proven in any way.
Yeah, but this acquisition kind of almost wasn't their choice. It was just like someone had to buy it. At the point of all well, it's like with all the lawsuits and like the share prices falling or whatever, it got to the point where it's like someone's going to have to buy this, and then Microsoft were just the ones to do it. It's like it feels like it wasn't necessarily so much as like they were searching to buy it.
I don't know. I think if they were in need of being purchased, they wouldn't have been carrying a 60 billion price tag.
Well, I mean, at a certain point, you have to pay for the stock on some level, even if the company is shit. As long as the stock price is still at a certain point, you still have to pay money.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that business value is no reflection of how well the business is actually functioning inside at that point in time, or nice to their staff, or the controversies surrounding it. Like there is no connection there. But business,
but, with the way those lawsuits were looking at the time, it was like either someone's going to buy it and completely restructure it, or it might just collapse entirely.
Or Bobby Kotick should have just left. One of the two. Yeah. So that's what they're doing in it. Yeah. The restructuring, if that's what you want to call it, it is happening, and it's happening on a big scale.
Assuming that this is actually anything to do with them at all, it might just be Bethesda stuff or something.
Yeah. I guess they haven't been. Yeah, I don't know if they've been super clear on that or not. Anyway, that's that. Moving on, different mega corporation, EA, they've been talking Battlefield, or at least Vince Zampella of Respawn has been talking Battlefield. He's saying they're working on a Battlefield 6, and that's what it's being called at this point, Battlefield 6. And he claims they're aiming for Battlefield 3-like experience, which he has described as peak Battlefield.
3?
I mean, he's kind of right.
I kind of agree. Yeah. I kind of agree with that. Yeah, Battlefield 3 is kind of peak Battlefield for me.
But the peak Battlefield experience is like. It's like peak Battlefield experience maybe in like game feel, maybe. But then like also it's like peak Battlefield experience in terms of like how the systems worked, of like how you unlock stuff and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
As we've said many a time, 4 was a fucking mess in terms of like how you unlocked and progressed in that game.
Sure, yeah. And in fairness, he hasn't said anything.
So do they know that? Or is he just literally just saying it's going to feel like running around in Battlefield 3?
So he hasn't said anything
how
too.
The game functions.
Yeah, he hasn't said anything too specific in that sense. The one thing he has mentioned was he liked how the classes worked, as in they moved in. I think in recent Battlefields, right, they moved away from it being like this class was for this purpose. And they became a bit more.
I mean, that was started in 4 as well, didn't it?
Yeah, that they became customizable to the point where they don't necessarily fulfill the role that they are supposed to be for. So he did talk about like wanting to get back to the hey, you're a rocket launcher guy, use your rocket launcher, that kind of mentality. That I suppose it's like moving the classes more towards like a hero shooter or a proper.
Not
game.
Quite like that.
yeah, but presumably not the Rainbow Six angle. Presumably not that. So I don't know. Some hope. Also, I find it interesting that Vince Zampella is talking about that, because does that mean Respawn them are actually working on it, or has Vince been moved to the DICE team that are working on it? Don't think that was particularly clear from what I read. Anyway, it's kind of interesting. Just in case anyone cares, Cyberpunk 2077 is actually getting a second anime. Netflix has greenlit some new stuff. I don't know. Edge Runners was okay, bit bleak, but okay. I watched that thing. So yeah, more anime, more Cyberpunk anime. Cyberpunk continues to live somehow. And finally, in my list, anyway, Zach's probably got some surprises. Nintendo are finally suing Pocket Pair, the creators of Power World.
Finally, okay.
Kind of weird.
But not necessarily for what you think. So, like, the obvious thing, I guess, about Power World is that, hey, it's got creatures that look a lot like Pokemon in it. But that's not what they're suing for, what they've managed to get them on, or are trying to get them on, is a game patent that was basically filed about the process by which you capture creatures by throwing something at them. So in typical Nintendo fashion, they somehow have a patent for a very specific way of doing a game mechanic. This I guess similar to how the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom physics patents went down, right? They've managed to lock down something specific enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're having a go at them for that. I guess they've been looking for a while. is the way I read this. They were sort of looking into it for ages to be like, what can we get them on?
Well, the trouble with that is that like it seems like that shouldn't have taken this long, right? That if you have that patent and it's a patent about Pokemon, and there's you don't have to look through every patent Nintendo owns. You don't have to look at the Pokemon relevant one. Surely you can find that immediately.
I wonder if they just wanted to be very precise about building the case and making sure it's watertight.
Even take that long either, though, should it? Because I
don't know. I'm not going to sit here and claim I know how lawyers work.
No, or patent law even.
Yeah,
but the patent, you look at the patent and it's like the character throwing a ball object at a character in a field environment, and then the ball comes back, and then you re-throw the ball to deploy the character, and it's like, well, yes, that's how Pokemon works, but that's also how not even just Power World works. Also,
what about
classic situation?
What about other
capturing
games?
Where it's like, how many other Pokemon-esque games have there been in recent years that haven't been sued?
How does Digimon work? How does Temtem work? How does Ni no Kuni work? Stuff like that have a sort of if this creature capture element.
If this was a trademark, this wouldn't work because, not that I'm saying that this could be a trademark, but if this was a trademark lawsuit, they wouldn't be able to do it because there's so many other things that clearly just do the same thing.
No, they'd have to have trademarks on things like Pokeball or the graphic of a Pokeball.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If this was a trademark thing, not a game mechanic thing, then this wouldn't be able to happen because there's so many other things that are already infringing on it, and therefore they're not protecting that.
Yeah.
Because that's how trademark law works.
Yeah, because presumably, they perhaps looked at presumably they must have gone through, the PAL designs and been like, these are similar, but I don't think we can
sue for.
Yeah, I don't think we can get them on this, which is probably where a lot of the time went, right? If you want to talk about, how long it took before they actually finally decided on this lawsuit, is they were probably looking at every angle and were like, dang, this is the only one we can really pull the trigger on.
I still feel like if you were looking at that feels like you would check the patent thing first rather than spending all the time very precisely analysing all the possible copyright angles.
Sure, but I think a suit has more weight if you fire...
apparently this obvious.
I think it has more power if you fire a batch of them all at once, right? Rather than just going, we found a thing, let's launch that. And then a few months later go, we found another thing, let's launch that, right? I think it probably makes more sense legally to do a batch of things.
No, but what I'm saying is that, if you suspect that you can get them on copyright on one of these models, and you're going to have to check all of these models, that's obviously going to take time.
Sure.
But if you know that you also have patents that you could look up in 5 minutes, you do that first, right?
Yeah, but they may have done.
Patent lawsuit wouldn't necessarily be attached to a copyright lawsuit. Those would probably have to be separate anyway.
Don't know. I don't know how that would. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. But I reckon there is a maybe a perception thing to batching lawsuits up in that way more than anything. Maybe lawyers know that it's if you hit them with a whole bunch of stuff, they might be more willing to just settle.
Well, I mean, this whole thing seems to be a play to just make them settle.
Oh, of course, yeah.
We're going to wait until no one's looking and then file this lawsuit, basically, by waiting 8 months.
Or maybe that's it as well. Wait for the heat to die down and then hit them. Wait to see how popular Power World is, or potentially how damaging Power World is.
I mean, I hope that will count against them in some extent, where it's you obviously haven't sued all these other ones, all the other monster capturing games that have come out over the years, and now you're going after these guys, but only because they were successful.
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw of the patent, like it's on the Kotaku report for it. They show a little bit of it. Like it is quite a specific flow of events, that describes this whole thing.
The other thing that's slightly weird about this patent that we're talking about, the throwing ball, capture creature, redeploy ball, deploy creature thing, which is essentially what this patent is just like it's basically a patent from Legends Arceus, because that was the first time that Pokemon had actually done that, like the third person view, even obviously because that's included as part of this. And
yeah, because it was filed relatively recently, right? It's filed 21.
Yeah, some people have been like extremely suspicious about that, like which came first or whatever, because some people have got confused because I think this patent was either updated or has only just been filed in US patents.
Right. So well,
like, they filed this patent after Power World came out, so they obviously can't win in this case because you can't patent the thing after someone else has already done it. I
don't think they did. I think it filed 21.
No.
And according to this, it was approved last year, so that would predate Power World release.
But then you've got the thing of like Power World had already like released preview videos or announced, and like you could already see that this thing was already the way they were going to do it back then. Well, that's just like,
but that gets muddy, right? Because
almost.
Because then is it based on the filing date or is it the approval date that really matters? That gets.
But regardless of any of it, it's just ass anyway. Because
obviously it's
as
ass.
we've already said about these lawsuits, it's like you shouldn't be able to patent game mechanics. Obviously.
No, I agree. It's like if you're.
And I have heard some people talking about this that like supposedly, and I don't know how true this actually is, like lots of the larger game developers like Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft. Do actually have tons of these patents for like basic game mechanics, but there's sort of just like a gentleman's agreement that they don't use them, like they don't enforce them. It's just so if there is a really legitimate case of someone actually stealing their work,
they're ready.
I don't know, ripping the code or whatever, then they can use it, but they don't use it for like, the idea of progress, I guess, like Powered theoretically should be.
So I
don't know how true that actually is.
So other little detail, if it's relevant, it's been filed under Japanese law, so it's nothing to do with the US.
Because they're both Japanese countries, also. I mean, companies, not countries.
Oh, is Pocket Pair Japanese? For some reason, I had it in my head that they were like Korean or something like that.
No, it's Japanese indie developer.
Ah, fair enough.
And there is one more tiny wrinkle that I'm not sure is actually going to matter, because I think they'll probably just stay out of it. But like, Microsoft and Sony both kind of endorsed Pocket Pair when the game came out. Like Microsoft gave them a bunch of help with their servers, and Sony kind of endorsed it as well.
Well, and it's been on Game Pass, right? That was how it launched on Game Pass. Well, I say launched; it's game preview still, but
I don't know. I don't imagine that they are going to get involved directly. That might be too much support. So far the game is still on Steam. I literally just had it downloaded 2.5 gigabyte update that they've only just put out.
Jeez.
So they haven't been pulled yet.
No, I know. I doubt they will be for a little while yet. This is probably going to be a lengthy...
Supposedly they don't actually know what they're being sued for yet. They only know they're being sued. Like they haven't told them the exact specific patents yet.
Yeah, so I should be exact. Like the patent that everyone's talking about, like is one theoretically fine. Stephen Totillo is the guy that's referenced by the Kotaku article. Is like, hey, I found this. So it might not even be for that. It might be for the the character designs after all.
Because I think I've heard people say that some of the other patents that they found that are like related to Legends Arceus, I guess, and definitely come into the category of like these are patents that no one should have, but are clearly like gentleman's agreement patents. If that theory is true, like Nintendo might have a patent for like being able to ride Pokemon. Like your character can mount a creature you've captured, and it's just like, hang on a minute.
Yeah, you can't really do that. They would have had to have defined a little bit like what was the deal with the Tears of the Kingdom, right? They would have to have defined how mechanically that is functioning within the game and within the game's systems.
I don't know what the hell's going to happen with this. I guess we'll maybe even have potentially news next episode.
Maybe, yeah.
Once they actually find out what the lawsuit is for.
What it actually is. When they actually get served.
Yeah, presumably.
That's the news. That's all I got.
And that's the news.
I do have one more tiny bit of bonus news.
Bonus?
So the Planet Coaster 2 pre-order is now on, because this game is coming out this year, and that's still ridiculous to me that this game has been like announced and is coming out like within 6 months even. It's like they kind of dropped that suddenly. But they've made the really obvious critical error that I can't believe people are still making of like the pre-order bonus features includes some like bonus rides, and one of them is a ride from Planet Coaster 1. It's like, you idiots. Don't do that.
That's kind of sucky.
Like, that's, pissed off people quite a bit.
Sure.
Obviously.
Yeah. Understandably. Yeah.
But how could they have possibly fallen into that really obvious trap?
How did they knock that
Derp. Well, it's because it's the old stuff. No one will care.
And even worse, you know what ride it is? It's the Cube.
The Cube.
The one ride that we think has a funny name because of very specific reasons.
Because of ITV television programs.
Yep. Featured in our video of Planet Coaster on the YouTube channel. Yeah, that's the situation with that. They've slightly pissed everyone off. And then, people in general are still kind of worried about how this game looks fucking exactly like Planet Coaster 1 in a lot of ways. It's like, why is this not an expansion? Or
sure,
because we don't really do expansions any longer.
No, they don't, do they? Because, the same argument was thrown against, was it the Jurassic World Evolution 1 and 2, right? That they're kind of the same.
So we'll see how that turns out.
Didn't they do? Oh, they did Planet Zoo as well, right? That's.
Planet Zoo is basically where most of the engine upgrade stuff for Planet Coaster 2 is going to be coming from, because that's the same engine. I don't believe the Jurassic Evolution ones might be the same engine, or it might be a spin-off branch of that engine, because it's pretty similar in either case. But obviously, Planet Zoo is the most recent one anyway.
Sure.
And that's the news. It's time for what you've been playing. And I think we better dive into Satisfactory, hadn't we?
Yeah, boy, we're running long. By the way, just putting that out there.
Well, luckily, as I speculated last episode, I don't really have super much to say about Satisfactory, because I've only got as far as I've ever got in Satisfactory, so I haven't seen super much new stuff except for the new stuff that's been put into the early game, obviously, which is mainly just there's the story stuff, I suppose, if you can say that that's super relevant. It's it's kind of background now that you have the alien tech as well. So there always was the weird alien artifacts around the world previously, and it was it did that classic joke where when you got close to it, the AI voice that normally tells you important information started saying weird things. It's that joke's been done plenty, but they were doing that. But that has changed slightly now, because you still get that effect, but now sometimes when you actually pick up the artifact, it also has a specific bit of dialogue as well, where the AI gets overwritten by the weird alien voices and says weird alien things. And as you pick up more of them, that sort of progresses that story, I guess. Because I've got to the point in that chain of dialogue, I suppose, where now the AI voice that normally talks to you has figured out that you're hearing voices, and then has tapped into your brainwaves to actually be able to talk back to the alien voices. So now this AI and this alien voice are just having a conversation through you. This is probably not going to end well. But yeah, the alien voice is all about songs and blood sacrifices and then windows and God knows what. But yes, the AI is currently trying to figure out like what their language translates to. Basically, what does a blood sacrifice mean? What is an effigy? I don't know where that's exactly going, but it's kind of dumb and ridiculous. Although I have seen another thing that like makes me suspicious that there is something also bigger in the world that's going to happen at some point. Because I climbed up the theoretically biggest mountain in the game because I knew there was stuff up there. I think there's still a uranium deposit up there currently because there always was. But I'm not at the uranium point in the game yet. I was just going up there for the other stuff like power slugs and alien artifacts and whatnot. But once I climbed up there, so the map has like a fog of war thing where as you're walking around it reveals the map. And it's like height based. So if you're higher up, it reveals things below you. But if you're below it, you can't reveal things that are above you.
Right.
So as I was climbing up, it's like it's revealing more and more of it. But once I got to the top and I looked at the map, there's just like a weird black square over it. Like that implies that there's something above me.
Oh.
And I'm like, so are we talking like invisible alien facility or something? Like that's just up there.
Oh.
And
or is it just a weird glitch or something?
Yeah. Does it look like a glitch or does it look like
well, it does look very square. It's like it's very sharp edged and like not like aligned to the grid or anything on the map. It's clearly, at a specific angle. And I'm like, maybe I should just like, I don't know, build a tower up there and see if I can like interact with it or get high enough to get above where the fog of war on it would disappear. See if that'll do something. Or maybe it's just like, it could just be that whatever's there doesn't actually exist until the point in the story where it'll like spawn or whatever, but the map recorded that artifact when it was generated or whatever. Because there are some other weird map artifacts, like the various alien things that are stationary on the ground that create a poison cloud. You can see the poison clouds represented as like the contours of a sphere on the map because it detects like the hitbox of the cloud of gas when it was generating the map or whatever.
Right.
Kind of weird. But yeah, that's why I'm assuming it's like there's something there. Because when they generated the map, clearly the ray casting or whatever they did to generate the height map of the map detected it. Yeah. So we'll see about that.
You can document that in a video, like building a tower trying to find the top of this glitch.
Maybe. And then apart from that, the only other particularly new thing that I've got to, which technically isn't like new for 1.0 or whatever, is like, because I just never got to it. I got to the point of having it, I just never done it. I actually got to try the blueprint system and how that works in this game, which is kind of weird and kind of interesting because you build the like blueprint making device, which is basically, it's just a cube again. It's basically like a frame cube that outlines the area that your blueprint can be in. So you have to build everything inside this like 4x4 box, essentially.
Oh, right. So you have to do it ahead of time? Like, as well, you have to be like, oh, I'm going to be building a thing I want to reuse.
Yes, you build the thing first, and then blueprint that, and then hit the button to just disassemble that's everything inside the blueprint zone, so you get all the resources back quickly without having to individually demolish everything.
Interesting.
And then you have that blueprint, so you can just stamp it down. But it is only within this 4x4 area, so you have these limited amount of space. But then, as I speculated the first time we were talking about blueprints, it doesn't automatically link up anything that crosses the boundaries. Even if you have like two pieces of belt that align between two blueprints, it doesn't automatically connect them. You still have to do that manually. There is still that kind of limit. But then the other slightly interesting thing, which is kind of the way Satisfactory deals with like undo, I guess, because in Factorio, when you undo something, if you paste down a blueprint, when you undo it, it deletes all the ghosts that haven't been built and sets anything that has been built to get unbuilt. That's how it deals with undo. And then in Shapes, when you undo, everything just disappears because everything is free in Shapes, obviously. So that's how it deals with undo.
Yeah.
But then in Satisfactory, when you build a blueprint and it places all the buildings and all the belts and all the parts and all the like power lines and everything in this 4x4 square. It remembers that that's a blueprint, so you can just aim at it and switch the dismantle gun into blueprint mode, and it will just disassemble that whole thing.
Okay, right. But is that true unless you make a modification to it, change your mind a bit inside the blueprint, or? Yeah,
pretty much. But then the other thing you can do is it remembers that it's a blueprint, so you can instantly dismantle it. But also, even if you go in and edit anything inside that zone, like if you get rid of parts of it or change parts of it that were part of that blueprint, it still remembers that the rest of it is a blueprint. So even if you've edited that in the world, you can still dismantle the whole thing anyway.
Okay.
Which is like, that's kind of cool. Like, that's a kind of decent feature for that system. That even if you change a small part of it, it doesn't forget that it is still a blueprint in general.
Okay, neat. Yeah.
So yeah, and we've also, obviously I'm playing a single player game and a multiplayer game at the same time, as usual. But we've just got to that point in multiplayer as well of having blueprints. So we're starting to build ridiculously large stuff. 4x4 is a weird size. Also, there is theoretically like 2 tiers of upgrades of blueprints. Like there's a 5x5 and a 6x6. But yeah, the 4x4 is quite compact, and people complained about that a lot for a long time, which is why there is now a 5x5 and a 6x6. But it's like you have foundations, which is what 4x4 means. It's like 4 foundation chunks, basically. And I don't know, like I would say that the foundations are literally 4 meters by 4 meters. So the blueprints are more like 16 by 16, I guess, if you're in meters. But because you're building inside the blueprint designer, you don't necessarily have to have a layer of foundations on the bottom, because the blueprint designer acts as the floor when you're designing the blueprint. So you can still have like buildings that you just place into the world without any foundations, or you can integrate the actual building parts into the blueprint as well. So you can actually have it build the actual building around the machines also. So like the way I've been designing my blueprints is that they have like a back wall behind all the machines, and then they have a partial second floor above them that I attach all the power lines to. But then if you want to stack them, you just complete the second floor and then put the next blueprint on top of that. So you can easily stack them vertically that way, because there's no floor attached to the bottom of the blueprint. But yeah, that's kind of an interesting system to mess with. But yes, at this point, both in multiplayer and single player, we're at the exact same point that I've always got to in Satisfactory, which is just before trains. So theoretically, by next podcast, I'll be getting into the train situation.
Definitely do some trains. And then chuck them into a vortex.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know, like... The trains theoretically have like collisions and signals and stuff, but I imagine at first it's probably just going to be like one train just going backwards and forwards between 2 stations. We haven't quite scaled up to the point of needing a whole network or anything just yet.
Are you going to get into full-blown open transport tycoon kind of
yeah, possibly
situations?
I mean, it has block signals and path signals, which are like the 2 main important types of signals that transport tycoon uses. I don't know how they actually function in Satisfactory, or I don't even know how like trains navigate, because I assume it probably just works on the Factorio system, where it's like you say what station to go to and it just figures out a path. You don't actually like, say turn here or whatever.
Right. But then that's how, that's what Transport Tycoon did as well, right?
Well, yeah, but then obviously in Transport Tycoon you could like have the waypoint stations that don't really count as a station, but you can send trains through them
to try and coerce the route of it.
Yeah. And then there's the whole situation of like multi-line, one-directional, all that stuff. I'm presuming that'll be the point where you'll definitely want more blueprints for like, here's a train junction, just stamp that down, and probably here's a train support pillar, and then you just stamp down a bunch of those across the world to put the train tracks on.
Right. What? Because there isn't anything pre-built like that, or
No, the train lines will just attach directly to the train in the same way that like belts do or whatever.
Right. Okay.
But that's obviously in this quite complicated, also quite 3D world is kind of inconvenient. Like you're going to probably want raised supports to get over rivers or
put it in the
raised
grid.
ramps to go up hills. Yeah, put it in the grid. I guarantee that I'm going to put it in the grid in my single player game, and it's almost certainly not going to end up in the grid in the multiplayer game because same problem as Terraria that I was talking about. It's actually quite funny in Satisfactory where it's just like you can tell who was working on what at the time because it's like you go look at our coal power plant, it's like messy bit, grid aligned bit, messy bit. It's like, we can tell who was doing those upgrades.
Do you still make programmed truck routes?
Yeah, that system is still in. Unfortunately, it hasn't gotten any more manipulable. Not a word. Hasn't got any more precise in your ability to edit it.
Right.
So you do still have to first time drive the route correctly and then hope that the trucks replicate it. They did do a patch a while ago before release that smoothed out the curves the truck would move between the nodes that it recorded, so it made it a bit more natural in its movement, which then better replicates how you actually drive usually.
Sure.
So we haven't had any problems with that going wrong or anything just yet. We haven't done that many truck routes either, though, really. The trucks have always been slightly weird with the fact that trains exist, because it's by the time it feels like you need to expand far enough for that level of logistics to be important, you're already at the point where you have the trains, so why would you use the trucks? It's like you only ever really feel like you need one or two truck routes before you're already at the point where you're at trains.
I don't know.
So the trucks seem almost irrelevant.
They came up pretty quickly, didn't they? Because in our early access.
Yeah, I mean they come up quickly, but in the early game you're using quite local resources, where it's the distances are so short that you can usually get away with just running a belt even.
So why did we do it? Is it just because it was there?
Because it was cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. That's why we made you do it, especially in that video, because I remember the specific place we were. It was just this doesn't need to be a route at all. So yeah, that's Satisfactory basically. There's not much else to say about it currently. The new alien tech is kind of cool. I guess I didn't mention that, what the alien artifacts are actually used for, which I've only seen half of because there's 2 alien artifacts. But the one that I've used so far is Satisfactory's answer to the robots, I guess, of Factorio, kind of. Well, not really. It's basically you build special storage containers that upload materials into the cloud, and then that lets you use those materials from anywhere from your inventory. So it means you don't have to keep going back to base to resupply, because you can just have your base dump the materials into this special type of container and then it just uploads them. But then that's obviously limited by how many of these alien artifacts you found, and also it uses those alien artifacts as an upgrade as well to increase the speed it uploads as well. Mm. But that's a very helpful system. It's mainly at this stage where we've only just unlocked it and it's at the lowest upgrade level. It's more like a backup rather than being a thing you consistently use. It's oh shit, I didn't quite bring enough wires, but there are just a few in the cloud, so I can use those. Whereas in the late game, probably once you've got that fully upgraded, you just switch it the other way around and never carry anything in your inventory. Just have everything coming out of the cloud. But yes, that is some quite cool, quality of life stuff they added that also helpfully made the alien artifacts important.
Right.
Cool.
Desirable.
Yeah. That's Satisfactory, and that's pretty much the only thing I've played this entire 2 weeks.
Apart from Big Ill.
Apart from Big Ill. Yep.
Okay. Well, look forward to some videos and some train updates next time as well.
Yep.
I will say, some game releases, they come out and you don't see much activity of. It's for some Satisfactory has definitely been hitting up my list of people playing it. Yeah.
People actually like it a lot more than I thought they would. Obviously the hardcore people have been playing it this whole time in early access. It's thousands of hours or whatever. But just for it coming out at 1.0, for even just the new stuff they added in 1.0, I guess, those people are yeah, this is great. And then people coming in at this point are holy crap, this game's awesome. And it's it feels like you don't see that as much from within that within the early access sphere.
Yeah,
it's like
the one
when
point...
you've been playing it for this long, you don't necessarily see that it's this awesome to come to from nothing.
Yeah, it seems like people have paid attention to the 1.0 release, right, and been like, right, cool, now let's see what this is. Oh,
yes. And I mean, I guess that is also another slightly unusual thing for an early access game to come out and it actually matter in a broader way, where it's just like people actually noticed it came out at all.
I mean, that might be because of the flood of factory games, is what I'm thinking. Like, because there's a whole bunch of them all came out, and a lot of them are probably still early access, right? And then I can sort of see the argument that maybe a lot of people were like, you know what? I don't need to look at every early access factory game. I'm going to wait for this one. I'm going to start waiting for them. And so because this has hit 1.0, they're like, let's go check. Let's go see what this is.
And obviously, on some level, Satisfactory is actually kind of different from all of the other ones, being as it is like a literal first-person 3D world, not procedurally generated, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Slightly handcrafted compared to the rest of them.
And it has cool trailers also. Kind of helps, I guess.
And a single llama.
Yeah, weirdly.
Llama.
Random llama plush in the base building, but like there's no llamas on this planet. Though I guess you wouldn't make a plush of a thing that you're on a planet that you've only just arrived at.
Is that
how would you know?
Is that a SimCity thing or a Jeff Minter thing?
Who knows? I don't think I've ever heard what that might reference. There's also a lava lamp, I guess, in there, in the cabin, and a toilet you can flush. That was their like joke 1.0 trailer where they were like, "It's coming," and then like the guy's sprinting through the factory, and then he like runs in the building and flushes the toilet, and then it's like, and also 1.0. But then they did an actual trailer when 1.0 really released, so it was okay. Wasn't just the joke trailer.
Yeah, we did play a tiny bit of Llamatron recently.
What have you been playing? Good segue.
What have you been playing?
Well, yeah, there was that. I'll try and be rapid fire, but like, there's basically, I've spent a great deal of time just emulating stuff on Steam Deck still.
Right.
Because that's still quite fun, and I do like how that stuff looks on that OLED screen. It just feels nice. There's something nice about doing old stuff, like old arcade stuff and old vintage console stuff. Not so much the 3D era, but like going back further, going into sprite only world. It looks really nice on that screen, and it's quite satisfying. So yeah, I've been struggling with Amiga emulation. I haven't quite got that. That doesn't seem to work particularly well on my setup at the moment. So I've got to play around with that some more. Another thing, but Llamatron worked, so I played a bit of
that. That's the main thing.
Oh, absolutely. It's just the audio design on that thing is insane, but good fun. So I did a bit of that. What else? So things I actually spent some time with. I played V-Rally.
Really? Oh
yeah. Cast your mind back to the early days of the PlayStation 1, and I don't know about you guys, but I remember there being a bit of a discourse about, like, are you a Colin McRae person or are you a V-Rally person? Or at least
I'm a Richard Burns Rally person. Which you have to try, by the way.
Okay. There was a more recent Richard Burns, wasn't there? There was like multiples of that, actually.
I don't think so. Was there?
Wasn't there? Because the one...
I've only played one. It gets like, because people like it, it gets like patched by the community. Like,
right,
I mean,
infinitely.
the one that everyone talks about was the one that everyone compared Dirt Rally to, because it was like, that was basically the last good rally game before Dirt Rally happened.
Isn't it later than you think as well, like in terms of when it actually happened? Like, it's
not super late.
It's like 2004, it says here.
When's 2004. That to me is later than I was sort of anticipating. All my memory serves me. But anyway, yes, back in this must be like 97. We're talking here. Like, it was Colin McRae 1 and V-Rally seemed to be the two that were floating around, at least in conversations I would have or something like that. I don't know. I had Tommy Mackinnon Rally as well, which is slightly different on PlayStation 1. But yeah, I had never ever touched, I think, any of the V-Rally games. Oh, tell a lie. I've played V-Rally on Game Boy Advance, which is quite a technically impressive game. But I'd never played the PlayStation 1 version. And yeah, I wasn't missing out. V-Rally kind of sucks.
It's good to sometimes confirm these things.
it's weird. Like, the handling is just, like, for one thing, it's not a rally game. It's like more of a rally cross game. So it's like it's racing. It's not so much about rally. So I wasn't expecting that. Well, the handling is just really strange. Like it's jerky, and it's like someone when you like, even though it's digital controls, it's like if you push the button, it's like the person on the other end is fighting some force feedback or something, because like there's someone in the middle, some squishy part that's like battling with it more than you are, because it's like you push to turn, it turns a little bit, and then it feels like it lets off the turn a bit, and then turns harder and sharper. So the version I have does. I think there was a re-release or something where they added analog controls, and they don't help either. It feels kind of the same, and like if anything, like your ability to just oversteer, but not oversteer in the way that you're thinking, like where it goes all slidey. No, it's like oversteering and just, oh no, you just turned too much, and like snapping left to right and stuff. It seems even easier to do that with analog controls than it does digital. And I just had a real hard time trying to zone in how you're supposed to control this thing, and then when I kind of did start getting a handle on it, it didn't seem very fun. Like the number of tracks is quite limited. I don't think they're particularly well designed. The physics, it's one of those games where the physics highly favors the other racers on the track. So if you're racing and you're trying to get past them, it's like and you hit them in any way, it's like you are going to lose out compared to them. Or if they hit you in any way, you are going to lose out. So that's a bummer. And some of the track design, particularly as you get to some of the more difficult tracks, it's actually hampered by bad art design to the point where you can't really see the turn coming up. It's like, sure, you can learn the track a little bit, but it is actually like visually pretty skank to actually tell where the turn is, and I wasn't emulating this. I should point this out. I was playing this on real hardware with a real copy, and it's so maybe that's alleviated somewhat if you up the resolution in emulation,
right? But that's not how.
It's not how it was back in the day.
No.
Yeah, I don't like it. Which is a shame, because I've also got a copy of V-Rally 2 for Dreamcast, and I wonder if they'll have improved things by that point. So we'll see. Anyway, that's that curiosity checked off the list.
Okay, now we know.
Now I know. Yeah, I don't think we were missing out.
I just looked up using our happysalad.net website tagging system when it was that I talked about Richard Burns Rally.
Oh yeah,
2011.
Yay.
Yeah, so I don't know what's happened to the game since then.
I don't think I've ever played Richard Burns Rally. I don't think I've ever.
But that's like a simmy one, basically.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that makes it interesting. I remember it being like hard but fun.
Right.
Yeah, you could do a full blown proper feeling. What do you call it? What's the
like a sim rig
Scandinavian flick?
Oh, cool
situation.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I remember it being like hardcore focused as well, even for the time.
But it wasn't like I remember playing. What's that really old Formula One game based on like 1960s Formula One or like something?
F1 Legends, is it? Grand Prix Legends?
Something like that. I remember playing that and it being totally impossible, basically, and not actually at all fun. Whereas Robert Burns Rally was like Richard Burns Rally was like
had some accessibility.
Yeah. And I remember it having a tutorial, voiced by Mr. Richard Burns, being decent enough.
Mr. Burns, you say?
Mr.
Does he say stop at the line?
Or concentrate? Did he shout concentrate very loud?
Yeah, he probably does. You certainly need to.
I can't even remember what rally game that was. that did that. Was it Rally Fusion or something like that? I think it was a demo we played back in like the Xbox era, but I can't remember what it was. Let's just concentrate. Should probably try and find that. So I did that. What else did I do? I got my light gun out again and mucked around with the Batacera install I've got on my Steam Deck. I was trying to get... Okay, I got curious, because obviously Time Crisis 1 on arcade works beautifully and it's lovely and it's a great game. But I got curious about the extra stuff, the Cantaris mission from the PlayStation 1 version of Time Crisis. So I ran into a whole bunch of trouble getting that to work, which I was surprised about, because it's PlayStation 1. Surely emulation of this is pretty good right now. But out of the box, the Batacera version was highly latent and not hugely fun. So out comes the tinkering, and so I got it to work well. For those listening, I got it to work using DuckStation, as you might expect, but that wasn't the default for this. But make sure you use the Vulkan renderer, because the default renderer seemed to crash the game after a while. Also surprising. But then when I put it into that, the latency was acceptable. Not perfect, but acceptable. So I tried playing the Cantaris, the hotel mission. Do you remember that? Like with some branching path stuff. In that. I swear the PlayStation version of Time Crisis 1 is harder than the arcade version. I had a real hard time with it. Like even playing the Time Crisis 1 scenario on that PlayStation 1 copy, that feels hard compared to the arcade.
There's a lot more. I don't know about you, but I've definitely come across Time Crisis 2 a lot more in the arcade. I think I've only ever seen Time Crisis 1 about twice in the arcade.
TC1 is definitely rarer.
I remember having played the PlayStation 1 at the time, being good enough to get really far in Time Crisis 1, but because I was playing it literally on the PlayStation at the time, I think.
Yeah, I don't know,
but it was definitely hard. I think I got as far as like the Wild Dog or whatever. The
Wild Dog fight is hard on TC1.
Yeah, and it's it couldn't do that in the arcade.
Yeah. Well, I found even the Shirudo Garo fight, he's throwing knives at you. It's on the PS1, that is really hard on the PlayStation version. Whereas on the arcade, I can do it without breaking a sweat. Like it's not.
Maybe
that's
what I'm thinking of actually, because that's only like a third of the way in or something. I think that's
the second boss. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I think there's only 3 big boss areas. So you're doing all right, I think, if you get to that point. But anyway, Shirudo Garo is really, really hard on the PlayStation version, but not that bad on the arcade. Wild Dog's just hard on any version. But I couldn't. I was really struggling with it. So I tried the Cantaris mission and was doing better at that. It felt like it was probably more tuned to the PlayStation, and was having more fun with that, until I got to the swimming pool level and just could not get past it. I just get absolutely destroyed. And Time Crisis 1 operates on the old on a credit system where if you put a credit in and you restart, you restart the area. You don't carry on from where you died. You have to go back and do it again. So it requires skill to get through. And I'm sure I have beaten the Cantaris stuff back in the day, but just couldn't do it this time. But did you know there was a PlayStation 1 exclusive sequel to Time Crisis?
No.
Time Crisis Project Titan. That also features the one-man army, Richard Miller. He gets set up for assassinating, he gets framed for assassinating some country leader or something, and then it's then the game starts on a Cantaris boat, so you have a whole bunch of sailors to shoot, which is
okay.
That game's also pretty good. As it turns out, it's definitely not as polished as proper Time Crisis. There are things like when guys who throw grenades are your absolute worst enemy in Project Titan, because they throw them with such a weird arc that they're off the screen most of the time, and you have to really just listen out to the of them coming towards you. Those guys are nasty. But other than that, hey, it's Time Crisis. Just we're in a new scenario and slightly different sound effects and slightly different, voices, like the guy saying danger and reload. It's different. and it's way cornier, if that's even possible, than TC1. Like, it's goofier. Like, I don't know. As you're heading towards the last area, you get out of an airport, and you're listening to a local taxi man in some, I don't know, Cuban or that sort of area, sort of tell you about things. It's all a bit weird. I don't know. It just doesn't quite. It's not as slick.
It was pretty cool to start with.
Oh yeah, but they kept it
There's been a kidnapping.
but like in any interaction you had was real quick, right? It's just like
yeah.
You know, you meet Shirudo Garo, and he's just like, since you've come so very far, have a seat and let me entertain you. In this, they talk for way longer. Basically, every conversation is quite a lot longer. Not quite as snappy or as badass feeling. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think, I thought it was Wild Dog at one point, but they've changed his voice so he doesn't sound anywhere near as cool. Like a bit more snivelly, rather than the sort of like, you killed my boss voice that he has in the first game. Yeah, I don't know. It's an oddity for sure, but yeah, it exists, and it's a light gun game. It worked well enough. It was fun.
That's cool. I had no idea that existed.
They actually do refer to him as the one-man army again, so
Excellent.
they kept that.
the one-man army.
They've changed his face slightly. I don't know, if they had slightly better texture work or something in this one, so he looks a bit more puffy in the cheeks than he does in TC1. Anyway, that game was fun.
It's time for the one-man rally. Richard Burns.
He doesn't have a co-driver.
No.
That would be hard.
No pace notes required.
Yeah, just knows it, just by instinct. Yeah, so there's that. What else did I do? I played some more F1 Race Stars that I briefly mentioned last time. Yeah, that game gets less good the more you try and play it, and the more you start figuring it out. Yeah, I don't know. It's really actually very difficult, as it turns out, and I think that's partly because the AI can do things you can't do. It doesn't feel. I mean, I guess they are rubber banding, but it doesn't feel particularly fair. And the balance of power ups isn't necessarily skewed in your favor when you're behind. There are some extremely powerful things, but the chances of you getting them are very low. It has a warp power up that. We watched a video not that long ago about how Lego Racers, this weird kart game, had a warp power up in it that was horrendously broken. But if you get it in this, it basically can just put you in the lead. Here you go, just warp to the front of the pack. But yeah, I think while the idea is good, it's mechanically I'm actually beginning to realize this is a somewhat flawed game, a flawed kart racer. It doesn't really work in single player a good kart racer, like a Mario Kart, like a Crash Nitro. Crash Team Racing, and then there was Crash Nitro Kart, I think. Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't quite work as well as those. There are some shortcuts that are nearly impossible for you to get into as a human, but the AI can just zip into no problem. Just because of the driving model, I don't know. They seem to be able to break it. They don't have to slow down. It has a this was in the era of KERS being the thing in F1. It's still part of F1. They still have the battery and they still have the engine, but they don't call it KERS anymore. But the way they try and integrate into this is there are certain turns on the track that are, or certain areas of the track that are KERS zones, and you have to. You get a 3-step battery and it charges the first step for you. But if you want to charge the second step, you've got to lift off and put the gas back on to charge the next step of the boost. So you're encouraged to get all 3 steps. But the AI seemingly doesn't have to let off the gas, so they just overtake you during that section of the track. They always get the 3-step boost. And it's that doesn't feel right. That doesn't look good. I like that they have some they tried to do the F1 theming in places. There are some smart ideas. One of the power ups is a safety car that admittedly plays a incredibly annoying noise. Sorry, when it's on, it sort of just goes woo 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 for what seems like ages. But the idea is like it's supposed to bunch the pack up, but it doesn't bunch it effectively enough. Like it's supposed to put like a barrier in front of the person in first that means he's forced to slow down so the rest of the pack can catch up, but it's not effective enough at doing that. Even though it lasts forever, like I don't know, just doesn't quite work. But I like the idea. I like the idea that they tried to theme it around that. It runs well enough on Steam Deck if you care about that sort of thing. But I don't know how much I will stick with it. Also, I think I mentioned it before, but like the characterizations of the real world drivers look pretty good visually, but their voices are all kinds of messed up. Like they just really go into like the country stereotype for how, like, oh, you're from Australia, right? You're going to be saying "ripper" a lot. Or you're from Germany. You're going to be saying stuff in a very, very German accent all the time. It's I don't know. It's kind of bad. So my opinion has changed on that. The other thing, the final thing I want to talk about is Kunitsu-Gami, which is the game I was playing last time. The sort of the Capcom weird tower defense, old Japan, purify the defilement on the mountain thing. I kind of went off that for a bit as well. Like I spent some time away from it. Like I don't know, my fears about the loop of it that I mentioned last time kind of started to come true. In that I started coming across some levels that were a bit harder and a bit more annoying to do, and generally, the loop of trying to get through the main stage. Get through the day part to like do all the prep stuff and then do the night part where obviously that's the important bit, because if you don't get through that, that's where you die. And I found the fact that if I wanted to restart the mission, I had to redo all of the prep stuff with no option to just go back a cycle. Started to get pretty annoying because those levels can get pretty long. And if it goes wrong right at the end, it's like, ugh, really? I've got to do all of that again? I was absolutely fine until this point where I made a mistake. And it's like, I really just want to do that last bit again because I'm going to do the rest of the level exactly the same until I get to that point. Yeah. And so I'm finding that a little bit frustrating. But I went back to it and I got over that hump, and I haven't really had too many failures so far. I still think there are some moments where the game's mechanics are basically just a bit of BS towards you. There's one boss that took me a few attempts. I'm pretty near the end at this point, but there was one boss that gave me quite a headache because you just had one attack that just seemingly just went straight for the goddess who you're supposed to be protecting, and it's like, I don't know what to do here. I don't know how to prevent this attack. So in the end, my strategy was just, well, I better just kill the boss faster. Rather than preventing the damage, I just focused on making sure everyone just did DPS, essentially, just absolutely hammer the guy, and that seemed to work. And that's fine if that was the intended strategy. There were just times where that feels annoying, rather than like, oh, I better rethink this and come back to it with a. I don't know. I feel like the strategy in this game the actual strategy is quite light. It's quite like I don't necessarily have to go into it necessarily with a game plan, because it has that sort of strategy game problem where if you're going into a level the first time, you don't know exactly what you're going to be coming up against. You don't know what the level is going to be focused on. It doesn't. The levels with special mechanics don't reveal those special mechanics until they're relevant, until they actually happen, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be a villager only level, or oh, okay, this new type of enemy was introduced only in the middle of the fight at night, and it's like, okay, how do I deal with that? I don't know. Let's figure this out. Oh, but I've had to. That's only happened, and it's only owned me after the entire setup phase, or after 2/3 of the level. Then suddenly this new enemy gets introduced, and now I have to deal with it. And it's like, yeah, that's a bit frustrating because now I've got to do it again. I'm sort of reminded of like the Advance Wars problem, right? Or the it happened in Valkyria Chronicles as well, where you get like halfway through the mission, you go, great, that went well, and then it suddenly, oh, by the way, there's this new thing now that you have to deal with, and you're like, oh man, but I'm so out of position and so exposed that I am boned because I didn't know that was coming.
That's basically the whole game of like Fire Emblem. It's like, it literally gets to the point where it's like, it's guaranteed to happen every mission. Where it's like, I'm going to get to this first objective and then I'm going to get fucked.
So yeah, like your first play is like just a tester almost to be like, right, I need to see what this is, which makes it like a perma run. And that must be a hugely frustrating thing to do. Like if you go into it blind in Fire Emblem.
That's why I think I maybe said that on the podcast when I was playing Fire Emblem, where it's like there was a moment where I considered letting the permadeath happen, but it was like the first mission where you have characters that can die and they just die immediately because you didn't know that all these enemies were about to spawn. It's like, well, screw that then.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah, I can 100% like have that feeling. Like just be like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. That was some BS. I don't feel good about that. So it's not as extreme as that, but like still, you can kind of get that feeling. But I'm still making progress. I'm still sticking with it. I do still love its style. I do love how wild the music gets in places. Like even though it's like most of the time it's staying traditional feeling, every now and then they break out of that, and I'll be like here's one that's got some guitars thrown in. Here's one that's weirdly got some synths that sound like they came out of the Rocket League soundtrack. I mean, the original Rocket League soundtrack.
Not Scar.
No, not Scar. Not Monster Cat or any of that. And it works. It really does work. Like it's bizarre, and I appreciate what they're doing here. Like I find the whole presentation super compelling, even though. And this is quite a big nitpick. Like it's a nitpick, but it's on the larger scale. Like on the settings that I think the rest of the game looks good, it seemingly makes the text pretty hard to read. Like there's something wrong about the contrast of the text and how thin the font is. I don't know if I talked about this last time, but it's a weird technical failing, like across a presentation that is actually generally pretty solid, very solid, in fact. Yeah, it's odd. It's just the text in some spots is kind of awkward. It's like an HDR thing, I guess. Like it's getting its balance wrong there. So it's anyway. Kunitsu-Gami is cool, but I can see if it. I would definitely see if why it would put you off in places. I've been doing the thing where you replay a lot of the previous levels to get everything out of them, to get the side objectives, and because the bonuses you get from it are tangible. Like they'll give you more of the masubi, which is the currency you can basically use to spec out and upgrade yourself and all your minions and stuff like that. Masubi. What I haven't really been doing is the thing where the game basically just lets you spec using your Musubi pool in any way you want. You can undo any previous modifications you've made and chuck them anywhere else, all without cost. But I haven't really been doing that. I've kind of been one-shotting it and sticking to it. It's like I've spec'd in this specific way. I'm like, that's the choice I made. It's like it's a weird like. I don't know. It's just a restriction I've sort of put on myself. Like you could do it any way you want, at any time. It's stupid, I know, but it's the way I'm sort of looking at it. Does mean like when I come back to a level later, I'll be like, you see, I've upgraded the person that's quite important for that particular mission. I'll go back and do that now.
Oh right, okay. Oh. Cool. But
I didn't have to, right? I could have just spec'd to be like, I'll just put all my points in the archers or the marksmen and they'll be able to deal with it. The last class I got is the sorcerer who, like, the description for him makes it sound like he's a smart bomb. So I want to figure out what that's about.
He's a smart bomb.
Yeah. Okay. Or like summons stuff that does a whole bunch of killing for you or something at very infrequent moments. A little bit like the pentagram in Vampire Survivors. I don't know. I'll find that out. I haven't used him yet. It's a cool game. As I said before, Capcom needs to continue doing weird stuff. I appreciate their weirdness. That's what I got. I'll leave it there. I'm sure there was something else I've forgotten. There always is, but I'm scattershot at the moment. I'm not focused.
Well, it's good that we've got it covered. That's the main thing. So we've had the big thing from Zach, Satisfactory, and more next time, and your scattershot.
Yeah, see what other random arcade games I'm playing this week. Random.
Yeah.
There's plenty I didn't talk about, like Bang Bang Ball and Suzuka 8 Hours and stuff like that.
Well, if any of those hit anything noteworthy, we can bring those for next time.
Do you guys do you guys remember Suzuka 8 Hours?
No.
Like there was it's a motorbike racing game, like made by Namco, sprite scaler. They used to have a 4-player setup in Felixstowe. Has a Le Mans start that I think is pretty cool. Like the guy runs to the bike.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I remember that quite clearly because it was they had a 4-player, but it wasn't just a 4-player setup. It was one that had like a status screen. It had like a fifth system that was attached to the rig that was basically only there to show like here's a map of the course and where everyone is, and occasionally show cutaways to that. It was pretty clever for the time.
But that you didn't spend too much time playing that.
Oh no, because it's like it was just its whole thing was the multiplayer. So like playing it by yourself, it's just like it's just a time trial. It doesn't even really like put the your position against the other AI bikes that are there, because there aren't many AI bikes also on the track. It just says you come first. Whatever you do, it's just like you came first. It's like because you're the only person on the track.
Right, I think that'll do it for a podcast, won't it? Yeah. Check out our YouTube channel. I'm sure there'll be plenty of Satisfactory going up in there in the future. But for now, we've got, what have we got? We've got our Half-Life 2 run through.
That's complete.
Check out.
Yeah, Shapes 2 went
Shapes if you want some factory stuff in the meantime.
Owlboy on the way very soon.
Owlboy incoming. So look forward to that. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another one of these Saladcasts, so we'll catch you then. Goodbye.